Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. The girl lying on the grass blankly wonders if this is her bed, then pushes herself upright and glances around in a daze just as two children scramble away shouting that she spotted them. She can only stare at their strange, twitching ears in shock, though the bigger question gnawing at her is where on earth she even is. She tries to piece her memory together. She came home from work, unlocked the door, and then fell asleep in the doorway. At least she thinks she did. A sudden, unhelpful thought hits her. What if this is heaven? Or a dream? And if it's a dream, she'd like to wake up quickly because her Monday morning shows are waiting. Before she can decide whether to panic or cry, several glowing screens flicker into existence before her eyes, forming what looks unmistakably like a status window. She knows almost nothing about RPG nonsense, but HP must be health, MP must be magical power, and apparently she even has a title, which, if titles reflect achievements, probably confirms she really died because honestly, 6 days a week at 14 hours each was already an invitation to the afterlife. Still, she feels annoyingly alive. The two cat-eared boys watch her tensely as she asks what this place is and explains she just woke up here. They stare back long enough that she starts wondering if they're sizing her up, noticing how similar they look, almost like twins. One finally asks if she doesn't remember anything and who she even is, while the other adds that they're near a Baticus village and she should hurry home before the storm arrives. She opens her mouth to ask what storm, and right on cue, thunder rolls across the sky and the clouds bruise dark. The black-haired gentler one tells her she can come with them if she has nowhere to go, but his brother immediately protests, reminding him that they don't know her and worse she's human, and they can't just invite a human home. Maru swallows and insists they can't leave her out here with a storm coming, and she wholeheartedly agrees, declaring she'll gladly accept their kindness and introducing herself as Honda Mako for short. Mira mutters that they don't trust her yet, but Maru politely welcomes her. She follows them into the village and Mira reminds her they really don't like humans here. When they finally stop in front of a worn, crooked little wooden house, the brothers announce their home, and Mako stares at the structure in absolute disbelief, wondering if it plans to survive the incoming storm or simply surrender. Mira shoots her a sharp look and snaps that she's probably thinking it's filthy, and she quickly smooths her expression and claims she was admiring how quaint it looks, though the house creaks as if personally disagreeing. She asks if it's just the two of them living there, and Maru explains quietly that after their parents died in an accident, it's been only him and Mira. A sudden crack echoes from somewhere in the walls, making her jump and blurt a panicked question about whether the place will even hold, and Mira barks at her not to be silly because their dad built the house himself while Maru admits softly that they can do repairs after the storm, though the villagers warn this one will be big. Mira tries to encourage his brother to stay strong, and Mako, remembering Eiji's claim that heroes help each other, decides she needs to help but help requires actual supplies. She says they could use angle metal fixtures, causing Maru to repeat the term blankly, and she explains they're small metal plates used for structural reinforcement. Mira proudly digs out something and asks if it's what she means, and she has to inform him that he's holding a farming wedge. Mako tells Mira that if they can bend this piece, they might be able to use it, and when he reaches for her tools, thankfully still tucked in her bag, she warns them she's about to make a little noise and apologizes in advance before getting to work. Both boys instantly slap their hands over their ears and only uncover them when she announces she's done. Maru asks if that's the angle metal fixture she mentioned, and she confirms it is, though just one won't help at all. They'll need a whole collection of these things if they want their house to survive the storm without filing a complaint. Suddenly a glowing screen appears, declaring that the skill alchemy has been unlocked, and she wonders if it's because she handcrafted the metal fixture, though it still feels unbelievable because the ones sold in her shop were much longer, heavier, and required way more effort to shape. Before she can question it further, her tools begin moving on their own, clattering and twisting as if possessed, and Maru stares wide-eyed while she does the same. He asks if it's magic. Mira echoes the question, and she mutters in disbelief that they'll also need a large quantity of nails, right as all the nails around them lift from the table and float obediently in the air. But when she gives another order, another notification pops up saying insufficient MP. She groans that all her MP has been drained already but shrugs, deciding that even this much will do nicely, then picks up a hammer and proudly announces that this lovely house their father built will be strengthened enough to outlast any storm. The next morning, the village beasts gather, grumbling about their miserable night. Roof leaks, shingles blown halfway to the forest, entire sections of roofing missing, and someone wonders aloud whether the twins managed to survive such a disaster, but when they turn to look, their jaws drop because the house stands completely untouched, not a single scratch in sight, as if the storm politely skipped it. One wolf sputters that it's impossible and demands to know what this miracle means. Right then, Mako steps out of the doorway, stretching sleepily and thinking she slept far too well, and the wolves immediately shriek that there's a human woman in the twins' house. Why is there a human woman in that house? She remembers, far too late, that Mira warned her the beastmen of this village hate humans with a passion. Maru quickly steps forward and demands to know what is going on, but before she can even answer, a beastman roars in outrage, shouting that there is a human in their home and questioning why one was brought into the village at all. The tension spikes instantly. Maru moves in front of her without hesitation and raises his voice, telling them they are wrong, that she is a good human. She used magic to repair their house and even made it stronger than before. Hearing this, she can only think wryly to herself that she is nothing more than a home center sales clerk. Murmurs ripple through the beastmen as they begin arguing among themselves, wondering if holy magic can truly reinforce a house and questioning why a human would ever use magic for beastmen, since magic users are usually royalty or nobility. Suspicion sharpens, and they quickly conclude that she must be deceiving them. They call for the twins to come to their side. Mako looks visibly shaken and asks in a small voice if the distrust toward humans really runs that deep. Mira answers grimly that it does, because humans look down on beastmen and treat them like animals. She explains that their parents once died in a carriage accident, and though they could have been saved with timely medical care, humans were treated first, and their parents were left to die. Maru steps forward again, his voice strained but steady, saying he understands their anger, that the wolves were deceived by humans before and forced to abandon their land to live in a place like this, but he insists that this human is different and begs them to trust her. His words falter just as Mako moves ahead, forcing herself to stay calm and composed, reminding herself that this is no different from dealing with difficult customers. She explains clearly that the children sheltered her from the storm and that she only wanted to repay their kindness, so she helped them by reinforcing their house, nothing more and nothing less. She tells them calmly that she has nowhere else to go and no intention of overstaying her welcome, but more than anything, she has no reason to deceive them. The past and present conflict between humans and beastmen has nothing to do with her, and she asks them to judge her as an individual, not as a human label. The beastmen remain unconvinced, their eyes sharp with doubt, but before the tension can turn into action, a beastman bursts out of the forest in a panic, shouting that there is trouble. In an instant, the atmosphere shifts, and all attention snaps toward him as he yells for everyone to run. Mako freezes when she sees the figure behind him, a white wolf staggering forward, its movements unsteady, frost creeping across its body. She blurts out that if it is a wolf, then surely it should be their ally, but Mira quickly corrects her, explaining that wolves and Beowulfs are completely different beings. Maru stiffens and says that the white-haired wolf is special, the guardian deity of the mountain, the one who protects its sanctity. They may share lineage with the wolves, but they lack their true strength. The white-haired wolf is a deity who protects the village from wild animals and attackers. Maru softly adds if it gets dangerous, the wolf signals from the mountains so they can run away. His existence is beneficial to the village. An exceptional being, yet he doesn't interfere with their local matters. She approaches the fallen wolf carefully, noting at a glance that he looks like he ate something he should not have. Without hesitation, she presses her hand to his stomach. Mako and Mira panic at once, shouting for her to stop, warning that it is dangerous, while the surrounding beastmen stiffen in alarm, openly wondering what that human thinks she is doing. Beneath her palm, his stomach is swollen and unnaturally hard. Ignoring his fierce growl, she asks him bluntly if he ate something bad. At that moment, a skill notification from her pit master title activates, and his words suddenly become clear to her ears. He snarls, calling her a wretch and demanding if she understands the disrespect she is showing to a proud descendant of the wolf god, threatening to devour her whole. She responds calmly, asking why he is acting tough when his stomach is clearly in trouble and asking if it does not feel strange. Startled, he freezes and demands to know how she can understand him, how they are even talking. She tells him it is thanks to a dialogue skill, then immediately presses the real issue again, asking what exactly he ate. He hesitates before admitting that he found an unfamiliar fruit growing on a tree in the mountains and ate it because it looked delicious, even though he had never seen it before. She scolds him like an exasperated mother, telling him he is not a goat and cannot just eat random things. His voice weakens as he admits he is in pain and asks if he is going to die, saying the food feels stuck and undigested. Realizing his condition could worsen, she decides to act fast and grabs a nearby stick, declaring that she is going to make him throw up whatever is inside his stomach. He yells in outrage, demanding to know what she is doing to a god wolf, but she apologizes quickly and tells him to stop growling and wait just a little longer as she pushes the stick in. Moments later, he violently vomits, collapsing once it is over. She watches closely, then asks if he feels better. He admits that it feels like a massive weight has been lifted from his body. She tells him that now all he needs is water and he will recover soon. The beastmen, stunned into silence, finally ask what in the world she just did. She says she simply cured him, adding that it was not a big deal, before casually asking if she can draw water from the village well. One of the beastmen silently takes her basket and says he will fetch it for her. At the same time, a notification flashes before her eyes, announcing her level has increased. Several days later, she looks down at the new dress she is wearing and smiles, feeling genuinely happy that she can finally wear clothes from this world. The villagers had spare garments, and just as she expected, wearing them lifts her spirits. Maru calls out to her, telling her that it is time to go. Over the past few days, she has been practicing with metal fittings and reinforcing the villagers' houses, and in return, the Beowulf residents have been paying her with food. Just then, the white wolf approaches, and she greets him warmly, calling him Entia as she strokes his fur, asking how he is feeling now and whether his condition has fully improved. The name Entia has been inherited over generations. It is a name with an ancient and honorable origin. In the olden days, the wolf gods used to protect the whole continent and their descendants were these divine beasts. Compared to the normal beasts, they had unparalleled power. The beastman revered the wolf gods and their descendants. In that settlement they brought offerings as well. Even now, individuals and families continue to bring offerings in gratitude for the protection of their lands. As a wolf god, even a young one works for their responsibility and grows into the role. Entia straightens proudly, lifting his chin as he says his condition is completely restored. At that moment, a beastman arrives, announcing that he has brought Entia's breakfast. She thanks him sincerely for always taking care of it. With a fond laugh, he ruffles Maru's hair and asks if he will be helping Mako again today, since they have only just begun reinforcing all the houses. Maru nods without hesitation and says that of course he will. After all, she is his big sister now. She forces a small smile, thinking that this situation is already out of her hands, yet she cannot deny that she has grown quite fond of him. Mira, however, is still skeptical. Several days have already passed since she arrived in this world, and she finds herself wondering how things are going back home. She even misses the weekly episode of her favorite show. Her thoughts break when she overhears a beastman complaining about how little he sold. If taxes rise again, they will not be able to survive much longer. The only solution is to trade more. She turns to Maru and asks if the village works with merchants. He explains that they sell goods on behalf of the village, meat from animals that wander down the mountain, edible wild plants and fruits, and handmade crafts. These are taken to the town market and exchanged for money. She asks what they have that could sell for a high price. Maru thinks for a moment before admitting that the village does not really have valuable items like gems or fine swords. Without missing a beat, she declares that then they should try making a sword. Later, they stare at her very first attempt, an unmistakable failure. Maru carefully asks if this is supposed to be a sword. Mira mutters that there is no way they could sell something like this. She sighs and admits that yes, it is a sword, but she could not get a proper image of it this time. Mako was able to get a clear image of those nails and metal fixtures because she handled them every day. If she can make something from alchemy and sell it, then she's sure she'll be able to repay the kindness the twins and the villagers have shown her. However, she hasn't really seen a sword in real life. Suddenly, her eyes light up. If it is a katana, then this is a completely different matter. The weight of the steel made from black sand, the sparks that fly when a katana is scorched, the polish that makes the dull surface brilliant, and the beauty of the edge and the crust of the sword. This time, she succeeds. She exhales and stares at the finished blade, her heart thumping. It looks just like the katana she once saw on that day. Maru and Mira exchange confused looks. Maru asks if that is really a sword. Of course. People in this world do not know katanas. But that only makes it better. The rarer the item, the higher the value. She then frowns, wondering how to attach the grip, when a familiar notification pops up. Her MP drops straight to 0. She stiffens. So that is it. She must have gained the DIY master title from all the reinforcing, repairing, and metalwork she did back at the home center. But forging a katana clearly pushed her beyond her usual skill range, and the cost drained her dry. She looks at the blade again, calmer now, and wonders how much it would sell for. Turning to Maru, she asks when they are going to the marketplace next. He thinks for a moment and says that since sales were poor this time, it will probably be in 5 or 6 days. She nods to herself. If her MP recovers in time, that will be just enough. She will make as many katanas as she can before then. The sun hangs high as she walks with several katanas bundled in her arms. She smiles at the beastmen escorting her and says she will be counting on them again today. Entya pads along beside her, his white fur catching the light, calm and watchful. One of the beastmen remarks it is rare to see someone insist on going to the marketplace themselves. He warns her that the town market is a place where people sell however they please. Is she sure she wants to go? She turns to the twins and asks if they are both sure they want to come. Maru answers immediately, of course. She will need extra hands, won't she? Mira hesitates, saying he is not really interested. She softly points out he is worried about Maru, right? Entya lifts his head and says she can rest easy. He will be watching over everyone himself. As they walk, one of the beastmen glances at her and remarks that she seems unusually calm. The road is long and tiring, even for grown men. She replies that it may sound strange, but she has good stamina. Back in her old life, she ran 5 kilometers every day around her neighborhood, even while working as a home center sales clerk. By the time they reach the town gates, the guard stops them and asks if they have completed market registration, so they can enter without inspection. Inside, she takes in the scene and murmurs that this must be the town and the marketplace. The beastman points ahead and tells her their usual spot is over there. They set up the katanas carefully. As she looks around, doubt creeps in. Will anyone really buy a weapon they have never seen before? Time passes. People walk by. Most only glance once and move on. At last, one sword sells. She feels a flicker of relief until the man who bought it comes back, frowning. He says the blade does not cut at all. Mira shrugs and mutters that a sword that does not cut hardly sounds like a sword. Another beastman adds bluntly that perhaps the problem is the man's lack of skill. The man bristles. What did he say? She steps in quickly, apologizing and offering a refund. The man snaps that of course he wants one. As she takes the sword back, her heart sinks. A nicked blade will not cut properly, that much she knows. But when she tests it herself, her breath catches. It does not cut at all. Not even an apple. She stiffens. She was careless. She never tested them before selling. She was so dazzled by the process, by the magic and the form, that she trusted it blindly. Worse, she realizes something else. She has never actually used a katana in her life. She only knows how it should look and feel, not how it should truly perform. One of the beastmen sighs and says they have done enough for today. Another pats Maru and Mira on the head, thanking them for their help and saying today was simply unlucky for her. She tells herself it cannot be helped. It was her first time selling swords. As they begin to pack up and leave, a voice calls out behind them. Hey! Are you the ones selling those swords that don't cut? He examines the sword with careful attention, turning it over in his hands, while the crowd quickly gathers, murmuring in curiosity. The beastman wonders what he is doing. He looks up, noticing their stares and acknowledges that he should have introduced himself first. He introduces himself as Aika, a researcher specializing in magical artifacts. Mako repeats his words, glancing around to gauge the reactions of those watching. Aika presents a small emblem, asking if it suffices as proof of his authority. The beastman leans closer and whispers that it is the coat of arms of the neighboring kingdom of Grogas, indicating that he operates under royal orders. She flinches slightly, bowing to apologize for any perceived discourtesy, but Aika waves it off, signaling that no formalities are necessary. He has heard talk of a sword that supposedly cannot cut, and his curiosity has led him here. He raises the blade, capturing everyone's attention. Sparks flare from the metal as he swings, cleaving a massive stone in two. The crowd recoils in astonishment. Aika's eyes gleam as he declares the sword is no ordinary weapon. It is magical, usable only by those with true magical power, and in skilled hands, capable of unleashing extraordinary force. His gaze snaps to her, excitement barely contained, and he grasps her arm, insisting on knowing where she obtained such a blade, emphasizing that he needs to study it. She feels a mixture of shock and disbelief. These seemingly ordinary, dull swords she carefully forges hide immense power. Half of her considers leaving them behind, yet she senses the precision in her angle fixtures, strong enough to endure storms. The strike he just executes is no accident, even though she is their creator. Perhaps she truly has the ability to control anything she touches, even from home center. Aika scans the rest of the sword she has made, voice filled with eagerness as he inquires whether this is the full set and what she would ask for all of them. She hesitates, unsure. Mira whispers from behind, suggesting she set a high price. She recalls katanas from her world, worth around 1 million yen each, yet these blades are far from ordinary. Her mind races, weighing not just the price but the currency of this world and how she can even begin to assign value to them. In the end, she sets the price at 30 gold coins for a single sword. Aika doesn't hesitate. He pulls out a pouch and says there are 150 gold points. The beastmen stare in shock, whispering to each other that it is real. Aika collects the swords carefully, scanning her with interest. He asks if she has more magical objects in stock or perhaps a listing he could look at. If possible, he would like to become her regular customer, so that if she has any interesting objects in stock, she can contact him immediately. Then he casually adds that maybe she would like to join him at his research lab, as there is much they could discuss. She stands flabbergasted, trying to process everything, while he explains that today they will investigate this magical sword and perhaps tomorrow she can visit the lab. Before she can respond, he waves lightly and disappears, leaving an impression like a passing storm. Later, over a meal, Olga remarks with admiration that being in the good graces of a researcher like Aika is truly amazing. Mako frowns slightly, noting that they barely exchanged introductions and asking quietly if he is really that famous. Ram explains that he is backed by the monarch, after all. They are talking about a magic researcher officially appointed by the Prince of Grogas. He has direct connections to the royal family, so if they are ever in a difficult situation, simply mentioning his name would provide protection or leverage. Olga notices she hasn't touched her food and asks if her stomach still hurts, thinking she might not be accustomed to the meals yet. She shakes her head and smiles faintly, reassuring him she is fine. Bagos reminds her that Mako has worked hard to ensure proper lodging and a hearty feast, so she should eat her fill. She smiles again, admitting that she is just a little tired. Meanwhile, Mira sits deep in thought, observing quietly. She brings the dinner over for the wolf, only to find him and Maru dozing together, curled up beside each other. She pauses, noting how lively Maru has been throughout the day and reflecting on everything that has happened. Mira quickly drapes a blanket over his brother and turns to her, apologizing softly. He explains that he never properly thanked her for reinforcing their house, even during the town market. He adds that without her help, they might not have managed to achieve their goals that day. He blurts out, words spilling fast, that she is kind, intelligent, and earnest, a combination that few possess. She kneels before him, clarifying that it is not as simple as he says, yet internally noting that despite his independent demeanor, he is still very much a child. She gently tells him that it must have been exhausting to protect both Maru and their precious home. He turns away, insisting that it is not that significant. She then asks him if he wants to sleep together. He blurts what is she saying. She teases Entia and Maru look so cozy snuggling together. He snaps he is sleeping alone. She wishes that one day he could trust her fully, though she notes that her favorability likely just took a small hit. The next morning, Olga and Ram depart first. She gives some money to a few children, reminding them to continue helping with the boxes, and they leave with Bagos. Once alone, she becomes serious, recalling that the place was in the heart of the city. Soon she approaches the place and explains to the guard outside that yesterday she sold magical objects to Aika and that today she only wishes to exchange greetings. The guards exchange cautious glances, silently questioning her words. Soon, Aika emerges, saying he was waiting for her. He greets her warmly and praises the swords he purchased as magnificent, explaining that he spent all night studying them. A girl accompanying him calls him Your Highness and urges him to compose himself as he is making her uncomfortable. Mako watches her silently, impressed by her calm demeanor, until the girl's words prompt him to blurt, His Highness. Aika smiles, asserting that despite appearances, a royal should maintain contact with the lives of commoners. He formally introduces himself as the 7th Prince of Grogas and Chief Magic Researcher, reaching out his hand with a proposal to start anew. Hesitant yet intrigued, she shakes his hand, still stunned, and says she had no idea he was a prince. A sly little smirk curls on his lips, a quiet warning of the boast that's about to follow. He's sure she's heard the rumors, though she has no clue how to respond. He declares the indifferent prince, young and devoted mostly to his hobbies, stands before her. The girl has heard of him for the first time, unsure how to respond, and feels overwhelmed by how much she doesn't know about this world. She is uncertain how to feel about these things and knows she has to navigate carefully. He shows her around the institute, explaining that it maintains a collection of magical objects acquired under his direction. Everything is stored here for safekeeping, and research is conducted on them as needed. Since he has withdrawn from the succession race, he has entrusted other royals with the funds and management. Swallow intervenes, cautioning him that speaking so openly might invite rumors. Empty rumors will only create unnecessary disturbances. He says that he had told her she is not like the other merchants. Swallow starts to argue, but he interrupts and asks Mako, right? She replies yes she is. He says, well then he wants to know about these swords. He also wants to hear about other things. Details about how these ended up in her stock and why she had set up shop with the Beastmen. She seems a little hesitant before asking if it is weird for her to be friendly with the Beastman. He shrugs and says in his view it would be ideal. Swear explains majority of Beastmen bear resentment towards humans. If humans want to earn back their favor, they need to first give back the right that they stole from the Beastmen. However, the prince was referring to how she seemed to have a relationship of reliance with the Beastmen. She thinks, as expected, they are suspicious of her origins. Lying feels wrong, so she chooses honesty instead. She tells them that those swords were formed through magic. The effect is immediate, both of them stiffen. She notices the sudden shift in the air and wonders if she has just put herself in danger. The prince asks if she is speaking the truth and whether she truly expects them to believe her. His eyes harden as he explains that only a select few, born from special lineages, possess the ability to use magic. Most of them are royalty or nobility. He then asks which family she belongs to. His tone sharpens further as he demands to know whether she is even a citizen of this kingdom. She staggers back, shaken. Should she be honest now? What could she possibly say, that she came from another world and somehow gained magic along the way? Even she doubts they would accept that. Her thoughts tangle as she searches for a way out. Before she can answer, the door bursts open. A knight rushes in and reports that a band of robbers has attacked a small shop. The employees and customers inside have been taken hostage, and the criminals are demanding negotiations with Prince Isekaied. The hostages include members of the Institute's staff and 2 Beastmen children. Mako flinches. Beastmen children? The prince immediately leans forward, his expression turning cold and focused, and asks what the robbers are demanding. The knight replies that they want all magical objects currently in the possession of the prince and the Magic Research Institute, insisting that everything be handed over in exchange for the hostages. The Viber family runs the large merchant house, a high-grade grocery shop known throughout the district. She arrives there in a rush and immediately spots Entia, injured. Panicking, she runs to his side and demands to know if he is all right, how deep the wound is. Entia dismisses it with a stiff reply, saying it is nothing more than a shallow graze. Her relief lasts only a second before fear crashes in. She whirls around in panic, asking where the twins are. Entia tells that the robbers stormed the shop, took everyone inside hostage, and barricaded the doors. The twins were inside at the time. Ram adds quietly that the 2 had been excited, eager to buy her some fresh fruit. Olga apologizes, since this happened under their watch. Suddenly, Entia bristles with fury and tries to rise, growling that he will tear the robbers apart and bring the twins back himself. Several beastmen grab him at once, warning that charging in blindly could get the hostages killed. The tension spikes, voices overlapping, fear and anger bleeding together. She steps forward and presses a hand to Entia's fur, stroking him firmly to calm him down. She tells him to stop, to breathe, not to let rage take over. They need to stay clear-headed. She spots some and thinks they must be the knights protecting this area. If they are anything like the police, she is sure they will take necessary action. She tells the beastmen she is going to check the situation herself. Before moving, she fixes Entia with a warning look and tells him not to cause a scene. When Olga tries to reason with Entia to do better, Entia snaps he knows. Mako inches closer through the line of knights, and then she hears the prince's voice. She moves past the gathered crowd, close enough to hear. The prince is speaking sharply to the commander, saying that he does not think the man understands him at all. The commander responds stiffly that they can hardly reach any other conclusion. The plan is already set, they will infiltrate the store, and the Viber family has been notified that compensation will be paid for any damage to the property. The prince snaps that this is not what he is talking about. Is the commander seriously suggesting they abandon the hostages? The commander assures him coldly that the people inside are only shop assistants and employees. As for customers, there are merely 2 beastmen children. The prince visibly stiffens. He asks, voice tight, whether that means they do not matter because they are neither royalty nor nobility. He reminds them that in his kingdom, knights swear a solemn oath to integrity. The commander counters that their knights have sworn allegiance to the crown. History itself proves the legacy of the Groga kingdom, its treasures have never been taken. Since ancient times, magic objects have belonged to kings and have been passed down through generations of royalty. To hand over royal possessions to a filthy band of robbers is unacceptable. He knows this. Listening, she feels something sink in her chest. By virtue of their title, she had imagined knights as symbols of justice and honor. She had been so sure they would rescue Mira and Maru without hesitation. The prince insists that if they proceed with this plan, the hostages will certainly be killed. That is what shocks her the most. He does not even belong to this nation, yet he is the one arguing to protect its citizens. The commander replies that this is a sacrifice they are willing to make. In a situation like this, she knows there is little someone inexperienced like her should do. Logic tells her to leave it to proper authorities. That is how things are supposed to work. And yet she refuses to let anyone cry on her watch. The prince pulls out a bag, saying he can use it for a safe exchange to free the hostages. The commander cuts him off sharply, asking whether he has been unclear. There is no need for reckless action. The prince may be the 7th prince, but they are bound by the orders of this kingdom's king. The commander turns to leave, then stops and throws him one last look, saying he should not forget why he was summoned here to witness reality. If he still believes humans and beastmen can live as equals, he should stop deluding himself with such ideals. Swallow also urges him to reconsider. They cannot simply hand over all their magic objects. The commander takes another step then halts as she steps directly in front of him. Before anyone can react, she draws back her fist and punches him squarely. The impact echoes through the stunned silence. Who would have thought that working at a home center would give her strength like this? Even she can hardly believe it. Admittedly, work at the home center demands constant heavy lifting, to the point that she can almost pass it off as weight training. She turns toward the prince and asks him directly whether he agrees with that commander or whether he truly intends to save the hostages. He answers calmly, asking what she would do if he said he wants to save them. She tells him that if he is willing to work with her, she has an idea. If her alchemy skill can assign values like strength to objects, then there may be a way to transfer that strength where it is needed most. As she demonstrates her magic, the prince watches in stunned silence. She says they need a simple and effective way to break the stalemate, and for that, they need a powerful weapon, one strong enough to overwhelm the robbers and rescue the hostages without delay. Before they can say more, a knight rushes over, reporting that the robbers have made contact. They are asking specifically for Prince Ixa. Moments later, the robbers emerge from the shop's back entrance, calling out to the prince and the knights, demanding to know whether the magical objects are ready. The prince raises the bag in his hand, confirming that they are. He asks if he should approach. The robber shakes his head and orders him to send the magic objects with an ordinary human instead, no knights, and not the prince himself. Hearing this, Mako realizes the situation is turning in her favor. The prince quietly asks if she is truly certain. She takes the bag from his hands and tells him it will be fine. She knows that striking the knight earlier forced everyone to take her seriously, and that their plan is already moving forward. Still, the weight of the situation presses down on her as she steps ahead. The danger feels real now. Then the image of the twins flashes through her mind, and she lets out a slow breath. She has no choice. She has to do this. Compared to chaotic sale rushes and brutal customer competition, this is just another crisis, only the stakes are far higher. As she steps inside the shop, several robbers are already waiting. One of them scoffs and says it happened. Another yawns lazily, remarking that this was easier than expected. The first man warns her not to try anything clever. From his tone, she realizes he must be the leader. He orders her to follow instructions exactly, or he cannot guarantee the safety of the hostages. Maru starts to sob, but Mira quickly clamps a hand over his mouth, holding him close. Mako keeps her voice steady as she tells the leader that the prince has prepared the magic objects and placed them inside the bag. The man sneers and warns her that she had better not be hiding anything inside. One of the men leers and tells her to take off her clothes, claiming he needs to check that she is not hiding anything. Another robber hesitates, muttering that this does not sound like their usual procedure. The guy says this will be quite the bonus. He is sure even that guy will understand. After all, they spent so much time preparing the escape route. When she does not move, the man snaps at her, demanding she hurry up and strip. In that instant, she understands this is her opening. She lowers her gaze, acting flustered, and apologizes softly, asking what about the hostages. Annoyed but impatient, the man orders the captives to lie face down and turn away. As soon as they obey, he says that should be good enough. That is when she moves. In one swift motion, she reaches into the bag and pulls out a thick metal pipe. The man barely has time to shout before she swings. The steel rod, normally used for construction scaffolding, crashes down with brutal precision. She does not hesitate. One strike after another, fast and clean. The robbers collapse before they can react. Within seconds, every one of them is down. The doors burst open as the knights rush in. The twins sprint toward her at once, throwing themselves into her arms. She hugs them tightly and lightly teases them about whether they managed to choose any tasty fruit after all. Once she is sure they are safe, she turns to the others and tells the hostages they can go out now. But the knights and hostages crowd around her. One of the knights asks what kind of magic or martial art she just used. Did she train with a spear? How did she take them all down so effortlessly? While the hostages thank her, convinced she must be a famous warrior or a powerful mage. She smiles awkwardly and insists it is nothing like that. Then she excuses herself, saying she needs to report to the prince at once. Outside, the prince stands before the bound robbers, his expression cold as he asks them directly why they attacked the shop and took hostages. Something about this case does not sit right with him. From everything he knows, they are nothing more than petty street thugs. They lack the planning, resources, and intelligence to carry out an operation like this on their own. He steps closer and asks them plainly whether someone put them up to it. It could be by someone who opposes him and wants to trap him in a difficult situation. Since he advocates for the equality and coexistence of beastmen and humans, it would appear as if he refused to part with his prized collection and chose to abandon the beastman cates. Not to mention the lack of support from the knights would cause an incident in the middle of a busy town market and would spur a rumor that would lead to him losing his standing and reputation. The leader's face twists with fury and he suddenly whirls on the commander and screams that this is not what they agreed on. This was not how it was supposed to go. They were promised rewards, so what is this farce? The commander acts clueless and asks what nonsense he is spouting, but the prince merely watches, his expression flat as he remarks that he cannot say he is surprised. Someone clearly pushed this man into doing the dirty work. Was it his father's faction? One of the king's loyal hounds? Perhaps the third prince? No, this scheme is far too crude for that. He concludes it must have been the eighth prince instead. Before the commander can protest, Swallow steps forward. There is a sharp, heavy impact. Armor cracks and splinters, the force throwing the commander off balance. The prince calmly thanks her and hopes she didn't kill him. Swallow answers coolly that he will live. Mako approaches the prince and asks what is going on. He turns to her and apologizes first. The incident with the two beastman children happened under his authority, and he considers that a failure on his part. It is unusual to see two beastmen kids at a store like that. It was also thoughtless of him to exchange such a huge amount of money. As she listens, Mako realizes there is still hope for the nobility of this world. He adds that he will personally handle the matter concerning the knight commander. At that moment, her chest tightens. She suddenly remembers something far more dangerous. She used magic openly, right in front of him. Questions are inevitable now. He looks like he is about to speak again, but a knight rushes over and announces that the lord of the Viber estate has arrived. The noble expresses his apologies for the incident and offers his gratitude for how the situation was resolved. Seizing the moment, Mako turns and bolts, calling out to Entia and telling him to pull the cart and run. Everyone scrambles aboard at once. The cart lurches forward, wheels rattling as it picks up speed. Behind them, the prince calls after her, but she shouts back that she is leaving the metal pipe with him for research. She tells him she understands his position as royalty, but no matter what, he must not give up. Back in the village, the mood is entirely different. Meat and vegetables are being given to everyone. Bagos raises his voice and reminds everyone not to forget who made this feast possible, declaring that Mako deserves their thanks for all the food. Once again, he announces proudly, they have come out on top. Bagos watches Mako closely and asks if she is truly sure about this. The money was hers, after all. She insists it is fine. She was saved by all of them too. She says it is great to help each other out and thinks about her favorite character always helping people out. Ram asks her where she is going. She turns back slightly and gestures to the two half-asleep children, saying it is bedtime for them. Ram smiles softly and agrees, saying a lot really did happen today. She gently ushers the children into their room, telling them they are home now and should crawl into bed. Maru rubs his eyes, trying to stay awake, and asks if he can sleep next to her. He insists that Mira has to sleep with them too. In the end, the three of them end up piled together on top of Entia, using his thick fur like a blanket. The warmth and softness are almost unreal, so fluffy and comfortable it feels heavenly. Just as she starts to drift off, she opens one eye when Maru softly calls her name. His voice is small and careful. He says he is sorry about today, and that they really wanted to do something that would make her happy. She reaches out and ruffles his hair, telling him it is not his fault at all, and that they should just have more fun next time. Maru hesitates, then admits that when they were trapped in the store, Mira was trying his best, but he was really scared. He says he thought they might be abandoned in front of humans and end up dying the same way their mother and father did. His eyes fill with tears as he whispers that, even then, he kept thinking she would come for them. And she did. That thought alone made him feel safe. He presses closer to her and thanks her for saving them. Beside them, Mira tightens his grip on her and quietly mumbles his own thanks. She pulls both of them close, wrapping her arms around them, and says she is just glad that no one got hurt. Next morning as they head out, Bagos looks at Maru and remarks he seems quite spirited today. He beams and says he's feeling great today as Maku made new clothes for them. Bagos says so she can do needlework too, huh? She replies well they are still simple clothes. Oga suddenly grumbles it is all wasted again. They ask him what happened. He points at the crops and they all look damaged. Mako blurts what happened to his crops. He explains he wanted to grow a bunch of different veggies, but it looks like he failed again. He has been watering them properly. He distributed the manure evenly too, but they still end up like this. She thinks if they're looking this disastrous even after proper irrigation and fertilization, then that could be the cause. He lets out a very sigh and says he did something king, if they could grow good vegetables here then they could sell them for a good price. He took great pains to purchase tomato saplings from the town market. Both the brothers watch the plants with confusion. They do not look like tomato plants at all. Mako notices it looks very dry and says basically his tomatoes and other vegetables are not suitable for this soil. It could be denotation of the soil and climate of this area that is stunting their growth. She thinks it could be the denudation of the soil and climate of this area that is stunting their growth. Could that be why these planted vegetables are unable to flourish in this soil? The screen shows up with the title Green Master. She totally forgot she had something like this Green Master title. She presses her palm against the soil and decides to try it. When light starts emanating from the earth, Maru asks in shock what is she doing. She doesn't answer him. She thinks to herself. The original pH value of the soil would have given no problems in nurturing the tomatoes, but there's an extreme scarcity of nutritional value. All in all, they need to control the pH value of the soil to grow such garden vegetables. She turns to Oga and asks if he has any idea why the soil is extremely lacking in nutrition. He replies not a clue. To begin with, this is a remote land, termed as such by the humans. They don't really show up around here. And there is a lot their people don't know about. She then checks his manure. He replies he bought this at the market. She asks if it is poultry manure or is it cattle manure. He shrugs. Who knows? He was just told that this was good for scattering on the crops. Out of nowhere, it clicks in his mind and he gasps, he got scammed. She replies it doesn't smell that potent, so probably yes. He is probably in this situation right now because of this uncertainty of this manure that he scattered over this field. Pulling at his hair, Oga mutters curses under his breath, while she stays completely focused on her work. If only they had chemical fertilizers, she thinks. Suddenly, the screen pops up again, announcing that the skill liquid fertilizer has been unlocked. She mutters about the Screen Master making a flashy debut, then tells Oga to leave it to her, she'll do her best and save his tomatoes. A sudden burst of light nearly blinds everyone. Oga blinks, asking what happened, and Maru points out that everything is shiny and sparkly. In her hands, a liquid fertilizer upgrade glimmers. Oga stares, dumbfounded, asking if those are potions. She repeats the question in confusion. Oga clarifies that he means if they are magic potions, made by magic users, capable of healing all kinds of injuries and illnesses. Before she can explain further, Oga grabs one and swallows it, claiming it will do wonders for his backache. She tries to stop him, but it's too late, he collapses. She mutters that she was going to tell him their fertilizers and calls Mira to fetch an adult to carry Oga out. Unbothered, Mira shrugs that he seems fine. Maru leans closer, curious about what the liquids do, and she explains that they can make chemical fertilizers. To grow good tomatoes, phosphoric acid must be poured into liquid nitrogen, then potassium added. Normally it's diluted with water before sprinkling, but the ampoules are ready for use. She places them carefully on the ground, trusting her work. The twins watch anxiously, asking if it will turn out okay. She admits she isn't sure yet and that they'll have to keep a close eye on it. The next day, everyone is stunned. The plants have grown overnight, with tomatoes hanging ripe and heavy. Bagos and Ram gape in disbelief, noting that such growth is rare in the village. Maru's eyes widen, exclaiming at how many wiggies popped up in a single day. Mako gulps, recognizing that the miracle is entirely thanks to her magic, though she hadn't expected the fertilizer spell to be this potent. Oga returns, rubbing his head and still complaining of aches, but Maru tugs on his sleeve, pointing out the thriving plants. Oga screams in astonishment and faints once more. Ram and Bagos sigh at his dramatics, while she smiles, thinking Oga is good people. Her state test window pops open, revealing that her recent work has significantly increased her status. She has even unlocked Green Master. The soil survey and liquid fertilizer skills alone prove extremely powerful, capable of producing remarkable results in any type of soil or terrain. Maru tugs at her dress with shining eyes, expressing his desire to grow vegetables as well so they can earn some money. She nods, thinking it will be a fun and interesting experience that can also help their finances. He beams and pulls out saplings that Oga had given him. Both of them press the scrape into the soil and start digging diligently. Now they are getting somewhere. They should inspect the quality of the soil. After the soil survey, she blinks. It is the same as Oga's farm. She wonders why the whole area shares the same odd soil qualities. This unchanging lack of nutrition in the soil is almost akin to curse. She tells Maru they can grow it here. They plant the sapling together, and she carefully applies the fertilizer, noting it takes a good chunk of her MP Entia appears, nudging closer to the plant, curious about what's happening. Maru stops him at once, telling him to be careful and to touch it only gently if he must. She smiles, agreeing, and says she hopes it grows quickly. Maru nods, clearly pleased. Much later that night, long after the house has gone quiet, the faint creak of the door pulls her from sleep. She finds Maru gone. At first, she tells herself he must have stepped outside to check the field. It's close by. He'll be fine. But Maru soon comes rushing back, breathless and trembling. She sits up immediately, asking what's wrong. In a shaky whisper, he tells her someone was in their field. A child. He wonders if they were trying to steal. They slip outside together and hide, watching. The child moves toward the plant, and a soft glow blooms in the dark. Mako understands at once, the nutrients are being stolen away. The child jolts in fear, when she reveals herself and stammers an apology frantically before fleeing into the forest. She tells Maru they can't leave her alone and follows. The night swallows their steps, and they can't chase far, but soon they spot a cave ahead. Inside, they find the girl kneeling beside someone lying on the ground. The child speaks in a small voice to her older sister, saying she brought some again and helps her consume the nutritions. The older girl blinks open her eyes. The older sister sits up, but the little sister tells her not to do that. She hasn't recovered yet. The older sister then looks at Mako and asks who she might be. Mako scratches her head nervously, not knowing what to say. Later they all sit together as Frisia admits they belong to the Alraune race, from a faraway kingdom, called Elfrando where they live. That day humans came and so all the Alraune people got separated. Both of them could only escape this far. During that time, her big sister's condition only got worse. She can barely move in her current state. People like them from the Alraune race are akin to flowering plants. They source their nutrition from the earth for sustenance. They can take that power and they can restore it as well. But the soil around this area did not have enough nutrition to replenish her health. Frisia blurts she is sorry for stealing. Maru quickly says it is okay, she had her own circumstances so it couldn't be helped, and even Mako understands she was doing her best for her big sister. The older sister introduces herself as Orchidea, fourth queen of the kingdom Alfrando of the Alraune people. And this is her little sister Frisia. She is uncertain as to how they can repay her, but Mako tells her they understand their situation so they do not need to worry about it. Orchidea looks sad as she softly says she doesn't know how it came to this. All they wanted was to live in peace. Mako understands that she has no right to criticize the ways of those who belong to this world. Even so, though she lacks a dream she can call her own, she can still protect the dreams of others. There is something she can do here. The moment that thought settles, her dormant hero complex stirs to life. She declares that she possesses the ability to invigorate plant life. Drawing on that power, she brews a potion and hands it to Orchidea, urging her to drink it. Orchidea accepts it with sincere gratitude, downs it in one go and immediately winces at the bitterness. By the following morning, the change is unmistakable. Orchidea looks revitalized. She openly announces that Mako saved her life and, in return for that kindness, declares that they will extend their stay in the village. Any requests should be brought to them without hesitation. Though she cannot handle heavy labor, she offers her help in cultivating flowers instead. The beastmen accept without complaint. Mako had been quietly worried, but seeing how naturally everything falls into place eases her mind. Orchidea offers her assistance to Oga as well. Caught off guard, he flushes, telling her she can take care of the weeds. With a smile, Orchidea reassures Mako that she feels perfectly fine thanks to the liquid fertilizer and radiant vitality Mako gave her. One of the beastmen announces that the tomato harvest has been plentiful and invites everyone to gather for a meal. Mako watches as they crowd around the table, voices overlapping in lively chatter. She thinks the village atmosphere seems more lively and bright. Orchidea murmurs that the scene reminds her of her homeland and the lives of its common folk. She adds that everyone is faring well and that they give thanks to God for having crossed paths with her. Mako is about to protest the excess praise when Mira approaches and quietly informs her that a human heir wishes to meet her. Of all the humans who know her, only the prince comes to mind, and the thought leaves her grimacing. If he is here, then he must have discovered the truth. But when she turns, it is not the prince who greets her. Instead, an elderly man clasps her hand, introducing himself as the Lord of Weber House. He explains that the greengrocery shop where she once defeated a group of bandits is operated under his family's name. Mako instinctively begins to apologize for the damage caused to the shop, but he cuts her off at once, saying it is irrelevant. What mattered was that she saved the store and, more importantly, the lives of those who worked there. He wished to express his gratitude directly, which is why he came to the village himself rather than summoning her. The Lord then presses her, saying there must be something he can do in return. After a brief pause, an idea takes shape. She asks him for a professional consultation. Gesturing toward the vegetables grown throughout the village, she asks whether their quality would meet the standards required to be sold at his shop. He examines them carefully before responding that, when it comes to trade and business, he makes no compromises. The land where the beastmen live has long been stripped of its nutrients, soil so depleted that a proper harvest should have been impossible, and that these crops grew at all can only be called luck. When the man comments on it, Oga snaps at him to watch his words, but Mako calms him down. The man takes a bite, assuming the vegetables were merely grown with artificial aid and wondering how they would compare to the high-grade produce sold at his shop, only for his eyes to widen in disbelief as juice bursts across his tongue, refreshingly tart, deeply sweet, almost like biting into berries rather than a tomato. He admits he has never tasted anything like it and says he wants to stock them at his shop immediately. When he offers silver coins in exchange, Oga hesitates, but the man insists they are worth far more. A beastman mentions that more remain in the fields and asks if they should trade those as well, prompting the man to suggest regular shipments and a proper sales contract, since the current amount would never satisfy demand in town. The beastman replies that the entire village can use their fields to grow more. Mako watches quietly, recalling how she had heard the Beowulf hated humans for their indifference and discrimination, yet here everyone is getting along. She later asks the man to keep her stay here a secret from the prince, and he agrees, saying she must have her reasons. Afterward, she prepares lunch boxes for the children, and Maru happily says he had fun making them with her. She replies that it is just a simple sandwich, though it tastes better with the tomatoes he helped grow, and he adds that Frisia helped too, since the crops flourished thanks to Orchidia and Frisia. A cool mountain wind passes, and when Mako remarks on it, Maru explains the mountain is a volcano, which is why earthquakes happen sometimes, making her worry that wild boars could rush down and trouble the villagers who have already been driven to this remote place. As she checks whether Mira is full, he unexpectedly asks if they could build another house because the current one feels cramped. And just on cue, Entya bumps into the wall because of his large size. Maru cheerfully says that if it belongs to her, then anything is possible, but she quickly tells them she is not some all-powerful being. She then asks Mira if he is truly sure about changing houses, reminding him that this is the beloved home his father built. He answers that it is true, but they will be living together now, and in that moment she realizes he has accepted her and Entya as family. She's not sure if they can build it. The home center used to sell an individual shed kit, so she does have practical experience from setting up the product display for it. But then there's the question of the time and resources it would take to construct it alone, considering that the Beowulf people are busy growing vegetables right now. But then she looks at the gloomy faces of the children, and before she knows it, she is saying that it won't really take long, just once everyone is able to lend a hand to them. Later, Maru is busy showing her a native herb when Mira suddenly calls out in alarm, pointing to a man slumped unconscious against a tree. Before they can react, a wolf lunges at them, and she shouts for Mira to watch out, but at that very moment the man snaps awake and delivers a powerful punch that sends the beast flying. The strike is so sudden and forceful it reminds her of a Kamen Rider style burning punch, yet the man collapses again immediately after, making her worry that he may have been injured. Mira kneels to examine him and says that the man is likely an adventurer. The man slowly blinks his eyes open to find himself lying on a small bed, and as he tries to sit up, Mako quickly moves to his side, relieved that he is awake and explaining that he collapsed suddenly earlier before asking what happened. He silently hands her a card in thanks and tries to get out of bed, but nearly falls, prompting her to catch him and guide him outside, insisting he eat something first. She gives him soup, saying it will be gentle on his stomach, and asks when he last ate. He answers quietly that it has been 10 days. She asks whether he is an adventurer, and after glancing at his badge, he replies that he is not, though he has taken jobs from a guild in the capital, reminding her of Mira's explanation that guilds function like unions for many professions. He introduces himself as Geralt and, after thanking her again, he starts moving. She thinks such a resilient man, but then he says he wishes to repay her kindness before departing and asks if there is anything he can help with. Thinking he is a good man, she replies that there is no shortage of chores, such as laundry and kitchen work. Meanwhile, Bagos complains while drinking water that farming is exhausting and that he cannot wait for the day to end, prompting Olga to scold him, saying they will grow nothing on this land with that kind of attitude. Just then, Mako calls out to them, noting that they have been in the field since morning with no time left for their own homes, and asks if there is anything they need help with. They hesitate only briefly before admitting that by evening they will be too worn out to cook, while another sheepishly adds that the laundry has been neglected as well. Mako glances at Geralt and says that, in that case, he will be helping them. Later, as they are hanging clothes, Mako exclaims it's amazing. Confused, Geralt says it's only laundry, but she explains that it's not the task itself, it's the sheer quantity, the speed, and the precision with which he works. She had thought she would need to help him, yet he finishes everything as if it were nothing at all. Without a single pause, every piece is cleaned and hung to dry in an immaculate fashion, perfectly arranged to avoid wrinkles. His work reflects not only his personality but also an exceptional attention to detail, and she realizes she would have gladly recruited him for the store without hesitation. Curious, she asks if housework is his forte, and he replies that it isn't really his specialty. He explains that the guild he belonged to sheltered the homeless and fostered children without parents. She realizes he may have grown up in an orphanage and that this experience shaped his careful, precise habits. He adds that he also lived alone at the guild, becoming accustomed to doing what was necessary and only the bare minimum to get by. She wants to snap that this level of skill is far from bare minimum. He is clearly highly capable and competent at any task. Mira asks about his guild and whether he is an adventurer, and he replies that it was a little different from that path. Mira wonders if, given his strength, he might have been part of a mercenary guild, and asks what kind of work he performed there and whether he will have to leave soon, and he calmly says it wouldn't be proper to overstay, though the children insist it's fine for him to stay for a while. He then begins making decorations, which Frisia watches with fascination. Mako notices the combination of precision and strength in his hands, especially in such detailed work, and marvels at how skillful he is. Maru looks at one decoration and exclaims that it's a bird, then points to another and says it's a frog, and Geralt assures them it's all doable. They quickly gather the decorations, excitedly thinking of how they can use them to brighten the fields. Then, on a sudden impulse, Mako asks if he would help her build a house. He looks at her in surprise and asks if she really wants to build a house. She explains that their current home is no longer in good condition and that she wants to construct a new one where they can live together comfortably. He asks if she has any prior experience, and she replies that for a small-scale build, she has experience drawing blueprints, showing him hers as an example. She adds that with him there to help, she is confident they can manage it smoothly without any problems. The same day when they spoke about rebuilding their house, they met with Geralt, who was a capable person. There is no way she's letting this chance get away. At last, he agrees to help her, and the children immediately say they want to help too. Since breakfast is done, they all get to work. He takes the lead as the main builder, while she organizes the site and gives the children small tasks. She uses her magic to summon the tools, but when she cannot lift one, she calls for Geralt. She remembers the oversized eggs she saw at a home center in America and imagines it like that. Geralt lifts it effortlessly as if it weighs nothing and begins cutting the tree, leaving everyone in shock. Mako thinks that what would have taken a whole week is being done in just a single day, and the sun is still high in the sky. She tells him they need to cut the logs into angular pieces of timber. He does it quickly and asks if it's good enough. She tells herself it's perfect. If someone can prepare these so well, the work ahead will be much easier. Next, she says the ground needs to be leveled and leaves that to him. She looks at the wood and realizes they cannot use unseasoned wood. It needs more aridity. Orchidia helps her with that. Mako thanks her, but also softly apologizes, saying they chopped down so many trees like this and they're receiving her help. Considering the significance of plants to her, she hardly thinks this is acceptable, but Orchidia tells her not to worry about it. Though plants are essential for the sustenance of all living beings, they serve as nutrition for the young of animals, and when a living being dies, it becomes a good form of sustenance and growth for another. It's a relationship of codependence where they rely on each other. That being the case, she hopes she will use them well. Next, they prepare timber for layering to build the framework. Once the posts are in place, the basic structure of the house stands before them. He says they will continue tomorrow, but her eyes shine as she insists they finish it now, and he agrees. She begins making the roof and wall materials and tells him to fix them in place. She thinks about using waterproof sheets, insulation, and heat-retaining materials between them. The next day, the children stand in front of the house, hardly believing it is real. Mako thinks she has done it. She built a modern house in a fantasy world in just one day. Inside, Entia stretches out and says it's huge, happy to have room to move freely to his heart's content. Maru suggests they have their meal inside the new house. She looks at Geralt and apologizes for making him work all night, telling him he can finally take a proper rest and that Entia's fluffiness will make it even more comfortable. He objects, but Maru grabs his shirt and reminds him that neither Mako nor he had slept last night and that they all need rest. Geralt freezes for a moment, then quickly says he will go tidy things up while they rest and leaves. Mako reflects that he is a sincere person, someone who diligently repays a favor but clearly knows his boundaries and will not overstep. She realizes it is nearly time for him to leave the village. Later, when he returns, Mako is still awake, waiting for him. She looks up and asks if it's okay to call him by his name and wonders aloud about the kind of work he does for the guild he belongs to, though she does not yet know what brought him here. She thinks that a person who cannot admit when they are lonely may end up like a king who cannot understand the suffering of others. She tells him there are many things she would like his help with and a lot they could do together, so she hopes he will stay in the village for a while longer. She also admits her concern that he might collapse again if he overworks himself. Geralt says he enjoyed building the house with her so much that he lost track of time, and that if it's alright with everyone. Mira, mumbling in sleep, cuts him off, asking if the four of them can have a picnic together. Sleepily, Maru adds that Entia should join as well. Mako smiles and says, alright, agreeing to their little plan. Their village has a new addition. A dependable friend has joined their ranks. Later, they all work on making flower bouquets. Mako compliments Mira, telling him he has a good sense of color schemes, but he insists it isn't really anything special. Maru points out that the blue and red flowers represent him and Mira, and the white in the middle represents Maru. Frisia admires it and says it's incredible. Geralt adds his own decoration in the center of the bouquet and Mako comments that it definitely adds cuteness to the arrangement. Maru then suggests to Frisia that adding yellow flowers would create a good balance, and Frisia places them carefully. Soon, Orchidea arrives with a larger bouquet and asks how this one looks, explaining that she channeled all her power into it. The bouquet feels very nostalgic to Maru, reminding her of the event at the home center where parents and children planted flowers together. Olga notices them and approaches, asking what they are doing. Mira shows him the bouquets and suggests they could sell them at the market. When Olga looks confused, Maru explains that the Lord said they could help transport and sell any local specialties of the village in addition to vegetables. They have edible white plants, fruits, dried meats, and pelt products, but Maru wondered whether they would actually sell at his shop. It was Orchidea's idea to sell the flowers as well, since they can provide medicinal benefits too. And so they made flower arrangements from the beautiful flowers raised by Orchidea. She asks Olga, aren't they lovely? Olga watches them and replies it is good looking. He then asks if the baskets were made by Geralt. Geralt replies yeah. The kids say it would be great if they sell well, and Orchidea assures Mako it would be fine. She's sure everyone will love them. Several days later, Viber bursts into the village, breathless with excitement, announcing that their efforts have been met with overwhelming success. The vegetables sold like wildfire, and the flower bouquets paired with Geralt's intricately carved wooden dolls had captured the hearts of everyone. They were disappearing from the shelves almost as soon as they were displayed. Messages and inquiries poured in from families and children across town, each eager to get their hands on these charming creations. Viber congratulates them all, praising their hard work, and as a small token of gratitude, he hands out fresh fruits to everyone. Maru smiles, happy but a little hesitant, and begins to ask about her presence in the village, but Viber quickly interrupts, assuring her not to worry, the information hasn't been shared. Despite appearances, he is a reliable confidant. Maru's thoughts drift to the knights and the prince. She knows it would be a serious problem if they discovered she was here. She wonders what the prince is doing at this very moment, guessing he has no time to relax. Meanwhile, Bagos prepares a feast unlike anything they've had before, featuring rich, fatty meat that they devour eagerly. He glances at Entia, still munching happily, and tells him to eat as much as he wants. Entia exclaims that had he known such delicious meals awaited him, he would have descended the mountain long ago. Maru laughs, noting that he seems to have forgotten entirely about his wolf god lineage. But before he can respond, a drunk Orchidea collapses into her arms, sighing contentedly and declaring how relaxed she feels. She demands to know who gave her the drinks, and to their shock, even Olga has been knocked out cold. A villager mutters in disbelief, calling the situation hopeless. Geralt, however, calmly downs his drink in a single gulp and calls for someone even stronger. Mira stares at him with wide eyes, astonished at his drinking prowess. Ram announces that he is next. Meanwhile, Mako watches as Maru extends a drink to her, blinking innocently. She panics, asking if it is alcohol. He blurts it's only fruit juice. Before she can relax, Ram approaches, holding a real drink in his hand, insisting with playful determination that she joins them for a proper toast. Though she takes it, but she really doesn't drink. A boisterous evening at Abatokas village. Today was as lively and fun as ever. And every tomorrow will likely follow in the same footsteps. It would be nice if this continued every day. Or so she had thought. The next morning, a group of unfamiliar men appears at the village entrance. Mako's eyes catch the crests on their armor, and recognition hits her like a jolt. Just as she realizes it bears the prince's emblem, one of the beastmen announces, alarmed, that they are the royal army. Why would soldiers of the kingdom be here, in their remote village? A girl steps down gracefully from a carriage, and the soldiers part to make way for her. She glances at the village and remarks that it is a shabby settlement, befitting the beastmen who live here. Then she turns to a knight and asks if what she's heard is true. The knight nods, explaining that this village has become a hub of influence in the town marketplace, producing high-profit goods. The denuded handicrafts, he adds, originated from this place. Because the Lord refused to reveal any details, they had to search for it themselves, and now they have finally found it. The girl's gaze sweeps over the villagers, and she notices a human who seems unusually close to the beastmen. Mako sees Orchidia clutching her terrified sister and rushes to them, demanding to know what has happened. Orchidia admits that these are the same black armored troops who had once raided their country. Mako steps forward, her voice firm, asking their purpose here. The girl laughs lightly. "Business," she says. Then, with a measured tone, she says that yes, they are on official duty. She introduces herself, the heir to the third throne of the kingdom of Groaga, the third princess, Antimiska. The soldiers surrounding her are her chivalric order, acting under royal authority. Mako realizes she is truly a princess. Antimiska continues, noting that she had heard there was habitable land in this remote region. It is a challenging task, she admits, but she has come to verify it for the benefit of all humans. Her gaze sweeps across the village once more, firm and unyielding, and she declares that this land will one day be reserved for human settlement. She remarks it is such a waste for the beastmen to be hogging a place that reaps this much profit. She is saying that humans will take over to effectively make use of this land. When Mako glares at her, the princess asks what are her intentions. She tells the princess that she is Mako, a human who came to this village due to reasons and she has been living here ever since. They are grateful that humans want to bring out the best from this village. However, by evicting them from here, they will be taking away their means of livelihood. If there is no mutual profit, then it is simply impossible. The agricultural production in this village is made possible from the presence of everyone here. She thinks through her skill, she revived this land and the Beowulf people reared those crops through their strenuous efforts. Orchidia and Frisia gifted the plants with vitality. The flower planters and the wooden carvings are special because they have been made by Mauru and Mira, Geralt and everyone. They are brimming with their devotion and sincerity. Mako says it seems she's mistaken about something. There's no reason for her to just take away their land. However, the princess says their primary concern is this land still being a living land. And whether it brings simple profits or more, that doesn't matter. Practically speaking, it is still usable. That is enough. They graciously accept the offers of various pieces to harness the powers of their lands. A flourishing harvest on any living land is directly related to the power of that land. Mako starts to say power of the land, but the princess cuts her off, saying the key is magic powers and dismissively says she doesn't expect her to understand. Mako thinks it is best if she doesn't know the truth. The princess says in the first place, magic is something that exists in all the natural world and the royals are the chosen ones who can control and contain that power by blood. People with relations to royal even carry out research on magic materials. Also, they can learn about the practical use and effective implementation of magic. Mako realizes what she means is that the land is living because it has magical powers. The princess goes on that magic powers are meant to make the lives of the humans easier. At the same time, it helps them stand strong against neighboring countries. Primarily, magic powers must be used by their soldiers and knights who do not possess magic. They must be in the form of arms and weapons for an overwhelming display of power. It is all for the sake of their nation Groaga. The princess declares that the world must witness the supremacy of Groaga, led by their father, the king, and that it will be no one else but her who carries out his will and leads the nation into the next era, calling this her first step, and Mako nods, understanding her meaning but raising her voice to insist that it is extremely difficult for them to align with such an ideology, suggesting that perhaps the animals in the mountains are becoming barbaric because the princess is usurping the power of the land from one end to the other, while Entia adds that the fruit of that unknown tree he ate, which made him sick, is likely a consequence of stealing the land's power, explaining that if the land loses its vitality, normal plants cannot grow and are replaced by abnormal varieties and strange species, and if wildlife consumes them, they fall ill or even die, as he did, which would break the links of the ecosystem and risk its collapse, yet the princess dismisses this, insisting that this is precisely why they must invade other lands, so that any lost power can simply be replenished elsewhere. She then tells them as for their dissatisfaction, they should not fret. She will give it some serious thought. Certainly, as humanity flourishes and progresses, the beast men and demons are being driven away to the hinterlands. However, amongst those are species like them who possess such productive capacity and equipment, in which case they shall establish an area for the purpose of protecting beast men and other races. And human monitoring will also prevent the expansion of breeding restricted species. Mako's face contorts in anger as she mutters what a sick joke. What protection is she harping about? She would basically be rearing them for the profit of the human population. There would be no different than servants. The princess says, isn't it a marvelous idea? Mako ignores that and simply tells her that they request her to return please. The princess' face becomes blank as Mako says she doesn't think they're in a situation where they can have a calm conversation today. They should take some time to understand each other's opinion and allow themselves to continue at a later date. The princess taps her on the head and asks, is she okay here? She hasn't truly heard her opinion. The princess sharply reminds Mako that she has the royal core standing firmly behind her. She could simply stay silent and follow. She grips the front of her hair, jerks her face up, and asks sharply if Mako honestly thinks she has the patience to converse with a lowlife like her. Mako knows she must resist. Years in the service industry have taught her how to handle indignant customers and people opposing the company. The only problem is that the opponent this time is royalty. Her defiance risks everything. Sensing the tension rising and fearing for her, Maru slips behind Mako and gently grabs her dress, steadying her before she can make a mistake. The princess's eyes land on him, and he jolts slightly. The princess casually asks them if they grew those flowers here in this village. It caught her eye. In the town, it looked cute enough to consider buying. Without warning, she kicks Maru, sending him crashing backward across the ground. She spits out that she has no interest in anything made by filthy beasts like them. Mako, finally unable to tolerate it, seizes her hand in a forceful grip and orders her to leave, her voice sharp and uncompromising. A ruler cannot govern by turning a blind eye to her people's welfare or by striking at children. Surely this is not the lesson her father, the king, has taught her. Enraged, the princess lashes out again, but Mako holds her fast. The knights shout orders, telling her to step behind them and preparing to strike down the so-called traitors. Before the chaos can escalate, Geralt steps forward, placing himself firmly between Mako and the princess, shielding her. Mako murmurs an apology for losing her composure. The princess grits her teeth, demanding to know who this man is. A knight replies that he may be part of the Shadow. Curious, the princess presses for more. The knight explains that the Shadow is a secretive guild that undertakes the work no one else dares, assassinations, intelligence gathering, and even subduing wicked dragons, and that this man is renowned for his unmatched skill, operating alone. Dragon? She repeats, incredulous. Geralt scratches his head casually, shrugging off her surprise. Exaggeration, he says. Yet he raises his arm, saying this is the arm that has seen the final blow through a dragon. The entire army shivers. He then studies their leader. Judging by his manner, he has likely been involved with the Shadow, at least a little, he says. The leader responds sharply, like it or not, rumors about him are everywhere. Entya moves forward, growling that he will join the fight, a fierce reminder to anyone who has long forgotten the power of the divine descendants of the wolf gods. Ram and Oga step up beside him, weapons in hand. Oga says firmly that this is where they live and that they will fight to protect the land they call home, glancing at Mako for confirmation. Ram adds that they never imagined they would grow so attached to this warren of a place, but they have. Bagos nods, saying to look how far they have come and that there is no way they will simply hand it over, all thanks to Mako. The princess snaps, placing her hand on her chest and declaring arrogantly that they really believe they can resist her, that she is the third princess, daughter of the king, and that to oppose royalty is to oppose the country itself. She reminds them that the army behind her is only a fraction of her power and that she could lead tens of thousands of soldiers to crush them, leaving no escape, and asks if they understand where they stand. The four of them tighten their grips, ready for escalation. The prince steps forward and states that if the seventh prince, Ixa Raygun Groaga, prohibits her from meddling with the village by royal decree, it changes the situation. Mako blurts his name in surprise. The princess demands to know what he means. He shrugs and says that the village is of great significance to him and cannot be destroyed for the selfish reasons of the royal family, it must be protected. The princess's face twists with disbelief, thinking he has forgotten how he insulted their father, openly revolting against him by advocating equality between humans and beastmen, abandoning his duties as a prince, and indulging his own desires. The prince meets her gaze calmly and points out that the king has not stripped him of his title as the seventh prince. He adds that he is tired of being attacked by his siblings and has made up his mind, he will join the battle for the right to succeed to the throne. The leader leans in and whispers to the princess that the situation is unfavorable and that his supporters cannot be ignored. She replies coldly that she is aware. He reminds her that several merchant houses in major market cities and multiple magic research institutes also fall under his influence, and that even the female swordsmanship instructor belongs to the Sukuna's clan. She snaps that she knows all of it far too well. Turning away, she declares that she accepts his declaration of war and tells him that he, the villagers, and that woman should prepare themselves to be crushed. He calls after her without hesitation, saying they are ready. Afterward, Mako approaches him and asks how he came to be here. He greets her briefly, then turns to the Beastman and states plainly that this has become a do-or-die situation, one the prince admits he really wishes he would have arrived at this village much earlier. Not that Lord Vibur shared anything with him. He is very trustworthy and dependable that way. They can watch the town market for information to find out about the region where the Beowulfs reside. And that's how he ended up reaching the village. Mako thinks that was to be expected and says it was wishful thinking on her part. He admits actually he wanted them to meet much sooner. But Swallow held him back. Mako internally thanks Swallow. Hidden remarks. She was extremely cautious in that circumstance. She thinks, yeah, she made a hasty exit after raising all that ruckus. That would definitely call for some caution. He says to tell her the truth, he wanted to meet immediately and investigate her background and that kind of magic she has. But most of all he wanted her to provide him with more magic objects so he could carry out more research. She giggles and says he's the same as ever. Amused, he ain't sup accepting that in truth, he actually came very close to the village one time. Seeing her enjoy a calm and peaceful living with the Beowulf of the village, he refrained from calling out. He thought it was best not to interfere then, as it wasn't really his place. She watches him surprised before softly saying thank you for keeping them in mind, and yet she kept thinking she should keep her situation hidden from him. She could have, but he softly cuts her off saying it is okay because he had given up only at that moment. He sat back and waited for a golden opportunity, all the while stirring up different strategies. There he goes again with that calculating mindset. He leans forward, his expression turning serious, and explains that the moment he learned Auntie Mishka was heading toward the village, he rushed here. He adds that he owes Mako an apology, but Auntie Mishka has always been unwavering in her beliefs and is determined to claim the throne at any cost. She has been this way since childhood. Realizing they are straying from the point, he stops himself. Mako says she will be direct and that they need to discuss their current situation. He replies that it is simple, when it comes to the crown, Auntie Mishka is prepared to do anything. He admits it is a long story. It is kind of a long story. At present, this country has 61 heirs who are battling for the seat of succession. She looks shocked, thinking what is with this sudden disposition. She knows the saying great men have great appetite for sensual pleasures, but isn't that too many heirs? He is the 7th in line and Auntie Mishka is the 3rd in line. These numbers don't signify their sequential order by birth. It is the order of precedence for the successors. The successors' merits of power are taken into account periodically, including any changes. She sees. So it is a ranking system. She says in that case there must be a lot of bloody fights and internal conflicts, right? He shrugs and says she's correct in her assumption. However, that is precisely what the monarch was aiming for. He wanted to see that conflict happen. As that same strife would determine the outstanding survivor further, it would also inspire growth and in conscience the birth and progress of a new regime. He thinks that is also why the country has continued its expansion the way it has. The discrimination against beastmen really took hold when they started invading the surrounding areas, which is just a link to their progression. Certainly she has heard about fierce competition helping civilization and science progress. Still, it is unendurable to get wrapped up in the horrors of war. She asks him at what stage does the seat succession race usually come to a conclusion. He replies at the demise of the current monarch. Otherwise, whenever the monarch decides, the first in line at that time can ascend the throne. Auntie Mishka is an ardent admirer of the monarch. The conflict thing is his ideology, after all. That is why, whether it is boycotting the beastmen or reinforcing the military, she is eager to trample on other nations for her advancement. Swallow interrupts their conversation to inform the prince that the princess army is encamped on the clearing just a mountain over. They are probably requesting support from their own forces nearby. They must be looking to attack the village tonight. He grabs the bridge of his nose, saying, "So this is really it, huh?" He guesses what he said really ticked her off. She already wanted to completely crush this village. His presence here just solidified her stance. Aika is probably assessed as a prince who has absorbed in his hobbies and not interested in the throne. Despite that, amongst the 61 contenders, he holds the 7th ranking. She must be missing something. She draws out of her thoughts when he calls her name. He meets her gaze with fierce intensity and states it is highly likely this village will be turned into a battlefield. He's also thinking of putting into operation the military force that he has prepared covertly. It would be best if she and the villagers take immediate shelter someplace. She realizes what he is planning on doing. Where originally the dispute was between the beastmen of the village and the anti-Mishka cavalry, he is planning on taking the helm and leading the fight to himself. So the beastmen have no direct relation to the succession race. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, he wants to protect them. She admits they are grateful for his consideration but asks him to leave this place to them. She thinks the reason for the royal family's visit this time is probably due to the increased presence of this village. They stood out too much. Beastmen are supposed to live quietly and always be mindful of watchful eyes, but she doesn't want them to move any further in that direction they all wish for. Future where everyone can rejoice and coexist happily. That's why she wants to gather and build strength so they have the power to deal with any future problems. Entia approaches her and asks if she has finished her talk. She spots Maru and crouches down asking how is he feeling. He replies he's okay, it doesn't even hurt anymore. Mira says he is ready to take these guys on. What they did is unforgivable. Both Ram and Oga look angry as well. Geralt calls out to her and says as time passes by, their numbers and strength will keep on increasing. They must strike while the iron is hot. He declares they are entrusting their lives in her hands and to tell them what to do. She turns to Aika and tells him they wish to protect this village with their own strength so they can continue to exist in freedom and happiness. She looks at Maru and her gaze softens. There is still so much they have to do together. Which is why they cannot allow themselves to lose heart in the face of these troubles. She then meets his gaze and asks if he would help them. He is willing to listen to what she has planned. Everyone crowds around her as she encourages them to fight and with a smile she tells them not to worry, they also have Prince Aika on their side. If worse comes to worst, they can always rely on him. With you. The prince says he is sure it will be fine either way. Mako then says she will tell them about their strategy. They have a charge of victory because Antimiska has underestimated them. She's likely waiting for her reinforcement so she can crush this village with her overwhelming military force. If they wish to overthrow them, right now is their best chance for subjugating them successfully. At the opening of their new store, the newly appointed staff had all collapsed from the strain of overworking, but she was the last one standing, so they will be totally fine. Moreover, this time she has dependable allies. They will show them. They are bound to face a lot of hardships in life, but they must not allow themselves to give in and leave things of fate. She must have courage to persevere, just like Soma Haruto from Kamen Rider. She announces they will begin their preparations immediately. Now it is showtime. Elsewhere, the princess snaps and demands to know when the reinforcements will arrive. The leader tells her to remain calm, assuring her that their current forces are more than sufficient to suppress and eradicate a village of this scale. As for Prince Aika, he explains that the man is merely trying to rally opposition, which makes this the perfect moment to strike. The situation favors them, and there is no reason to rush. The princess bites down on her finger, her face twisting with rage as she vows to crush them for daring to resist her. That shameless woman will be trampled until nothing remains, and Aika, that insolent brat emboldened by their father's favor for his recklessness, will be dealt with as well. She turns toward the window and asks the leader about Geralt, noting that he seemed to know far too much about him, and wonders if they were acquainted in the past. The leader replies that they were not. Geralt did not recognize him either. Before aligning himself here, Geralt was involved with the underworld, and his skills were legendary even there, someone the leader once wished he could challenge. She cuts him off impatiently, telling him she does not care and that this time he may act as he pleases. The leader adds that during their earlier encounter, the young woman wielded a mysterious weapon that appeared out of nowhere, possibly magic. The princess dismisses the idea outright, asking if he truly believes that woman shares royal blood. It was likely a magical tool borrowed from Aika. Another soldier enters and reports that reinforcements will arrive shortly. The princess smiles in satisfaction, saying she cannot wait and reminding herself that they will not escape. The leader responds that scouts have already been stationed around the village perimeter and will alert them immediately if anything changes. Deep in the forest, the scouts observe the village and remark that it does not look like anyone is attempting to flee, calling them fools until one of them stiffens and says he senses something strange. At that moment, a sound echoes through the trees, unmistakably signaling that something is approaching. A few hours earlier, she rides atop Entia as they move swiftly through the forest, following the trail of wild boars that roam the mountains. When she reaches some of them, she tells them to follow and the boars pause, turning their heads toward her in a way that makes her feel understood. Entia lifts his head and lets out a powerful howl, a call that echoes through the slopes, and soon more boars emerge from the trees, answering him. She thanks them for gathering, though one of the boars snorts in suspicion, remarking that she sides with the villagers and warning her not to assume she can intimidate them simply by standing beside a wolf. Entia growls and asks if he should deal with the insult, but she tells him to ignore it. She bows slightly and apologizes for the villagers' past actions, admitting they attacked without thought when fear ruled them, and that it caused harm. She explains that the village wants to make amends and that she has come to speak for them. After a moment, one boar replies that if she understands this, then it is acceptable, adding that being attacked without warning is frightening even for beasts. She says as an apology the villagers have prepared a feast. The boars scoff at first, but their tone shifts the moment they see the food. One asks if they are truly allowed to eat at all. She says they must wait until everything is ready and tells them Entia's howl will be the signal, warning them not to damage the village or harm anyone. They agree without hesitation. When Entia howls again, the boars rush out of the forest. The men barely have a chance to react before they are trampled under the charging herd. Watching from a distance, Oga mutters that things are going exactly as Mako predicted. After the feast, one of the boars thanks her, admitting they have not eaten this well in a long time and that the villagers are not as bad as they believed. Almost casually, he adds that they flattened some strange men in the forest earlier. She explains that those men are enemies of the village, people trying to seize its vegetables and flowers for profit. The herd bristles at once, anger rippling through them. She tells them the intruders are camped in a clearing on the far side of the mountains, and the boars snort in unison, declaring they will deal with it. Not long after, inside her carriage, the princess is jolted violently as the ground begins to shake. She demands to know what is happening, but no one answers. Only a scream rings out, shouting that the camp is under attack. She wonders if the villagers have gone on the offensive or if Aika has somehow mobilized troops already, though it should be impossible in such a short time. When she looks out the carriage window, her breath catches. Charging straight through the camp are wild boars. The herd of boars charges after them, with Mako riding atop Entia, guiding the animals forward. She marvels at the sheer number of wild creatures hidden in the mountains, muttering that their power is astonishing. Orchidea joins the fray, declaring she will fight alongside them to let go of the grudges she still harbors from her hometown's raid. She hands Mako a potion, urging her to drink if she falters. Mako swallows the bitter liquid in one gulp, and almost immediately, energy surges through her. She commands the plants to rise, roots tenacious and strong, bursting from the earth. As expected of Queen Orchidea, Mako murmurs. Nearby, the carriage of the princess lies overturned, but before they can reach it, a commander steps between Entia and the carriage. Geralt positions himself firmly, warning Mako that he will handle this man and she must move toward the carriage. The commander scoffs, questioning if Geralt truly believes it will be that easy. Suddenly, Mako finds herself surrounded by cavalry. The boars and Orchidea have already thinned their numbers, yet the remaining enemy still presses heavily. Just then, Swallow leaps into the fight beside her, announcing she has come under Prince Ixa's orders. Mako blurts that she's wielding the sword she made, and Swallow confirms it too falls under the prince's command. Entia hurls one of the knights aside, growling a warning not to forget the might of the wolf god's descendants. Meanwhile, Geralt duels the commander, shouting for Mako to leave it to him and keep moving. She dashes toward the carriage. Reaching the door, she grabs the handle, fumbling with the latch, ready to restrain the princess, but unbeknownst to her, the princess is already behind her, a rope in hand, ready. The commander states, strictly speaking, that he is still half human. He is sure Geralt understands that very well. Like the Alraune, the commander carries both magical power and the blood of monsters running through his veins. Suddenly, the commander's arm begins to swell and lengthen, tearing through his shirt as thick muscles ripple and expand, and he declares that he can channel this magical power to enlarge his body at will, stretching himself far beyond normal size. It is the power of the blood of giants, he booms, and with that, he lunges at Geralt with devastating speed. Geralt swiftly dodges, keeping his stance steady and his gaze locked on the advancing figure. The commander remarks Geralt is a demi-human like him, isn't he? Geralt says now that he knows, then he should witness the same power that defeated the wicked dragon. Meanwhile, The princess tugs at the rope binding Mako's neck, her face twisted in arrogant disdain. She snarls that, try as she might, Mako will never get what she desires. She mocks her for using the boars to lead the charge that is typical of a rustic woman like her. The princess boasts of her royal blood, her authority, her conquest, and her strength, declaring herself chosen, powerful, and destined to dominate. She claims she is a conqueror, powerful, and that the villagers are nothing compared to the chosen ones, only to admit bitterly that she is the daughter of a prostitute, born from her father's curiosity and desire to explore all possibilities for a successor. Mako recalls what Aika said, those with magic usually come from royalty or monster blood. If magic belongs only to royalty, then according to her, this village is entirely wrong. The princess continues, detailing her tragic childhood, left behind by her mother to serve in a brothel, treated harshly by the owners and other women, with no time to rest or care for herself. When the king's messenger finally reached her, informing her that she was recognized as his daughter and a successor, her life changed but not entirely for the better. The brothel owners, once cruel, now bowed to her, while the brothel burned and the women were cast into the slums. Mako thinks that in that moment, something inside her broke, giving rise to a new, dangerous ideology, that those with power have the right to trample those without, to dominate them. Mako snaps, telling her to shut up. The princess pulls out a knife, asking where the sin lies if it serves her happiness, using her power to take what is hers is justified. She aims at Mako's heart, but Mako's gaze flicks to the amulet on her chest, given to her by Mauru. As the knife strikes, the amulet shatters the blow, sending the princess flying backward from the force. Mako pushes herself forward, grabbing the princess and striking with her steel stick, yelling that while power may allow someone to trample others, she uses her strength to protect, not harm. She recalls all she has done, making liquid fertilizers to grow vegetables, restoring Orchidea's life force, building a home with Geralt, saving the twins when they were taken hostage. She has always used her powers to bring happiness to her people, not for herself. She hits the princess with such force that she collapses, her eyes rolling back. Mako tells her after working under unreasonable circumstances she gained new strength as well, but she just cannot agree with her. If she was under different circumstances or even if she did not have everyone supporting her, she would never be like her. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part. The commander scoffs and asks Geralt if this is really all there is, mocking the situation by saying that it looks like nothing more than a defensive battle. At that moment, Mako returns with a grin on her face, giving Geralt a thumbs up and thanking him for waiting, while a defeated princess lies collapsed on the floor beside her. The commander looks disappointed but mutters that it does not matter who Geralt serves for now, because he will simply slay him and prove his own strength. However, before he can even act on it, Geralt appears directly in front of him and delivers a devastating punch straight into his stomach, so powerful that the commander gasps in disbelief before collapsing to the ground. Staring down at him, Geralt coldly says that since Mako is safe, there is no longer any reason for him to conserve his strength, and that he will teach him how to kill an evil dragon. As the commander himself had pointed out, Geralt carries the blood of the Oni race, and its magic flows freely through his body. He summons flames around his fist and declares that this strike is imbued with all of his magic power, enough to punch straight through the hardened scales and dense muscles of a dragon. The commander desperately begs him to wait, but Geralt has already struck. Even Mako flinches in fear, yet instead of dying, the commander is simply sent flying through the air and loses consciousness from the impact, having been completely knocked out. Geralt calmly crosses his arms and remarks that he would never use that much power on someone like him. Mako immediately runs to his side, praising him for a job well done, and Geralt quickly turns to ask if she is all right. She nods, thinking to herself that he truly is a gentleman. As they look around the battlefield, Geralt mutters that this second group does not seem willing to give up so easily, as many of them are still groaning on the ground. Yet the princess, perhaps too foolish to read the situation, screams at the remaining men, demanding to know what they are doing and ordering them to stop standing around and kill their enemies already. The prince standing behind her calmly tells her that making such a fuss is pointless, explaining that they have surrendered and that the outcome of the battle has already been decided. He then turns to her and states coldly that she, as the third in line to the throne, has received a formal declaration of war from him, the seventh in line, and has clearly lost. The princess snaps back hysterically, insisting that she has not lost and refusing to accept reality. At that moment, another smooth voice cuts in, stating plainly that she has indeed lost. Everyone turns to see a new figure, who introduces himself as the supervisor assigned to monitor, manage, and judge the succession battle, as well as to record it officially. The prince feigns innocence and remarks that when he requested the supervisor to accompany him, the odds of success had been slim. Hearing this, Mako asks him what he means by that, confusion clear in her voice. Isekaied turns to her and calmly declares that this battle will mark his first true victory, and that it is all thanks to her support. Then he faces the princess once more and tells her that he could erase her existence right here and now, but in exchange for sparing her life, he demands that she accept his conditions. His expression hardens as he states his terms clearly: the third title and the rights to the land she has governed until now will both be taken from her and given to him. The princess finally looks truly defeated and hurriedly says that she does not mind handing over those rights, begging him not to let their father hear about what happened here. He feigns surprise and asks if she means she wants to avoid their father learning that she lost to him, suggesting instead she would want to record the incident as them encountering fierce resistance from the beastmen but defeating them miserably. He adds that such a report would only result in the king's great disappointment, making it clear that this version of events will not stand. Turning to the supervisor, he tells him to take care of the rest, and the supervisor replies that he will report the previously stated contents to the king and inform him of the official judgment later. At that point, the princess trembles with rage and suddenly screams at Mako, vowing that she will kill her and the beastmen no matter how long it takes, swearing that she will rise again no matter how many times she is defeated. Mako is instantly infuriated and calls out to Geralt, who restrains her in an instant. Without hesitation, Mako forces the princess to gulp down something. Panicking, the princess demands to know what she made her drink. Mako replies that it is a potion she created using her magic. The princess snaps back in disbelief, asking how someone like her, who is not even royalty, could possibly possess magic. Mako ignores the insult and calmly explains that the magic infused into the potion will permeate the body of whoever drinks it. Desperate, the princess looks to Orchidia for help, but Orchidia only smiles, and in the next moment a massive root bursts out of the ground without warning, startling her completely. Mako then looks straight at the princess and tells her that she is free to live however she wants, but if she ever attacks their village in the same way again, she will surely understand what will happen next. She briefly wonders if this level of intimidation is enough, when the prince gently places a hand on her shoulder to calm her and tells her that it is all right, because he will stake everything he has to make sure she never has to repeat this twice. She looks at him with a small, satisfied smile, thinking just as she always has, that he truly is reliable. Geralt approaches and asks if it is time to go home, and she nods back at him with a bright smile. Soon, everyone gathers together, smiling and filled with excitement at the thought of returning to their village. Later that night, as the villagers drink and celebrate, Bagos asks Orchidia where Mako and the family are, remarking that they are practically the stars of the celebration, unaware that at that very moment, they are sleeping peacefully, curled up together against Entia. Mauru and Mira stare at the cows with wide eyes, clearly surprised by the sight, while Bagos instinctively pulls the children closer to him, warning that they might get hurt if they go too near. Orchidia, however, only smiles gently and remarks that the cows are eating the grass with great appetite. As they continue looking around, they also notice sheep grazing nearby, adding to the peaceful scene. Olga then points straight ahead and tells them to look closely, because the capital is already within sight. Mako looks up in surprise, realizing that what she is seeing is none other than the king's castle. 1 month earlier, Mauru had looked absolutely delighted as he announced that it was finally finished. Standing in front of the house, Mako had agreed, saying it felt good, because the house had become even sturdier than before. It was now strong enough to withstand rain, humidity, and even insect damage, and the paint job was especially impressive. The skill she used, an oil-based paint designed for durability, was suitable for outdoor use, had a low odor, was easy to apply, and was beginner-friendly, while still being safe for indoor use as well. Not long after, Bagos came to inform them that the head of the family had arrived. He explained that there was a grand project in motion, a plan to open a directly managed store in the capital to oversee and support the villages, focusing on specialty products proposed by the head of the Weed Blue family. Because it was such a large undertaking, Mako felt worried that it might put too much strain on everything else, but with encouragement from everyone around her, she decided to accept the challenge. She wanted to test the new skills she had learned, and before she knew it, her excitement began to grow. The family head then addressed everyone and told them that they should begin preparations immediately, starting with the store itself. He explained that the location was originally a plantation site owned by the Weed Blue family. Mako hesitated and asked if that was truly acceptable, since it was such a prime location, but he smiled broadly and replied that they were deeply indebted to the village, and more importantly, that it was an excellent business opportunity and the perfect place to invest. Oga asked if that meant they would start by constructing the store, and the family had replied that the construction would be handled on their side, while the village would need to focus on the interior design and the products to be sold. Oga admitted he could not even imagine what the interior might look like, while Mako began to wonder how the products would be transported there. She asked how far the capital was from the village, and he answered that it would take about 2 days by carriage. Hearing that, she remarked that it would take quite some time and that they would need to carefully consider how to transport crops without damaging them. She then brought up the matter of sales staff, asking whether they would handle sales themselves, since it would be easier to explain the products that way. Ram agreed that it sounded like a good idea, and Oga added that because it would be them on site, there were certain things they could communicate more easily. Suddenly, however, Bagos looked uneasy and quietly voiced his concern, asking whether, as beastmen, they would be met with disgusted looks when trying to do business in the capital. Mako replied with firm determination, saying that this was precisely why they should go together, because they would be selling items made in their own village, and they should do so with pride. Turning back to the family head, she suggested that they build the shop themselves, but he looked at her in disbelief, questioning how they could possibly build from the ground up without specialized knowledge. Mira immediately cut in, saying she could do it, and Mauro backed her up by pointing out that she and Geralt had already built their own house. The family head looked shocked and asked if it had really been done by just the two of them, and Mako thought that was indeed the case. After all, it was not as if this would be their first time opening a shop, and with her magic combined with Geralt's precise skills, even constructing a building the size of a single family house should be possible. If they sourced the lumber from the village, it would also help boost their reputation. She turned to everyone and declared that they should build the shop in the capital and give it their best effort. Oga smiled and said that in that case, he would take responsibility for transporting the lumber. Bagos added with a grin that with Orchidia and Frisia handling sales, business would surely improve. Mako then looked at Geralt and asked if he was on board as well, saying that they should all do their best, but he unexpectedly turned his gaze away. She is momentarily surprised by his reaction, but then she remembers what he once told her, that he had belonged to a guild in the former capital. Mako is helping Oga carry baskets of freshly harvested fruit when a calm, familiar voice suddenly asks whether the talks about opening a branch in the royal capital are going smoothly. She looks up in surprise, momentarily stiffens, then hurriedly calls out Prince Ike's name and stands, assuring him that everyone is working hard before asking if something is wrong. He shakes his head lightly and replies that it is nothing serious, only that he thought he should lend a hand as well. As he speaks, he pulls out a letter and explains that it is a letter of recommendation written in his name. Business in the royal capital is a harsh and highly competitive world, and there are those who rely on cowardly tactics and even barbaric methods. If trouble arises, mentioning his name at such a time should serve as reliable backing. He then asks whether Geralt is nearby. Mako hesitates, then admits that ever since preparations for the store began, Geralt has been acting a little strange, and that once everyone started seriously discussing opening a shop in the capital, it felt as though something from his past there had resurfaced. The prince approaches Geralt and apologizes for disturbing him. Geralt turns, reserved as ever, and asks whether the prince needs something from him. Prince Ixa tells him not to be so formal and says that he understands Geralt's circumstances may be the reason he chose to hide himself, and that this is likely why he is reluctant to open a branch in the royal capital. Geralt does not respond and the silence becomes awkward. Taking that silence as an answer, the prince continues, saying that after considering everything, he has already pulled strings behind the scenes, and that there is no one left in the royal capital who will come after Geralt now. Geralt's expression finally changes, and he asks quietly if that is truly the case. The prince smiles with quiet confidence and says that he guarantees it. Mako steps forward then, her voice earnest as she says she would be happy if Geralt came with them. As long as he is there, she believes both she and everyone else can face new challenges with peace of mind, just like they did when the village was attacked, and probably from now on as well. If anything happens, they can deal with it together. Geralt watches her for a moment, then lets out a faint smile and tells her that she really is straightforward. After a brief pause, he agrees to accompany them to the royal capital. Mako immediately runs off to take care of the remaining work, her excitement impossible to hide. Watching her go, the prince quietly tells Geralt that he does not need to tell her about his past unless he wishes to, and that whether he does or not is entirely his choice, before asking him to take care of her. Later, Mako and the others arrive at the gates of the royal capital. She hands over her certificate to the guard and explains that she has come by introduction from the Wee Blue family. The guard stares blankly at the Beastmen and Entia, clearly uncertain, but when Mako presents the prince's letter, his demeanor changes instantly and he allows them to pass. Inside the capital, Orchidia offers to handle the initial procedures and leaves the others behind. Mako slowly looks around and murmurs that it truly feels like a prime location. Not long after, the head of the Wee Blue family appears and waves at her, and together they head to the site where the Beastmen are already working. He remarks that the shop is really being built from scratch, and Mako replies that using lumber from their production village will make for very impactful advertising. He agrees, saying there are things a merchant could learn from her way of thinking, though Mako shyly denies it, saying it is only thanks to her magic and everyone's cooperation. When the day's work ends, they return to the inn. Orchidia helps the children inside as they sway drowsily, barely able to keep their eyes open. Later that night, Mako looks out the window and quietly steps outside, only to find Geralt already there, asking if she is going out. She replies that she wants to see the streets of the royal capital and tells him not to worry, joking that even if strange people appear, she can chase them away with a metal pipe. Her words trail off when lights catch her attention, and she looks up in disbelief at the bustling streets, filled with people shopping and moving about even at this late hour. Walking alongside Geralt, she thinks that she had imagined the royal capital would be similar to the village, but it is completely different. When she comes across the Adventurers Guild, her face brightens, and she feels a quiet thrill, thinking that it truly feels like a fantasy city. Starting tomorrow, they will be setting up their shop somewhere in this vast town. She nearly bumps into someone, but Geralt catches her and warns her to be careful. Flustered by how close they are, she gives a small, awkward smile, then steps back and tells him that starting tomorrow, they should do their best, because charging ahead with high spirits is the best way forward. They will need metal fittings and tools, so they should rest early and recover their strength. Unable to contain herself, she suddenly lets out a barely suppressed cry of excitement, declaring that they are really going to do this, drawing curious looks from passers-by, while Geralt deadpans that she should work on suppressing her habit of suddenly shouting. Mako raises her voice and calls out to everyone, telling them to keep doing their best until the shop's opening. She reminds them that the weather is harsh and urges them to drink water frequently so no one collapses from exhaustion. As each person returns to their work, she becomes aware of the atmosphere around them shifting. People nearby slow their steps, voices dropping into uneasy murmurs. What are Beastmen doing in the royal capital? There is even a complaint about the smell, someone muttering that it reeks of beasts. Others whisper that it is a suspicious group, questioning what such people could possibly be doing in a place like this. Mako watches them from the corner of her eye, her shoulders tensing. Just as she expected, they are drawing attention. Before long, a few men approach, and she turns to them calmly and asks if they need something. One of them crosses his arms and replies that they are from a nearby restaurant. Mako pauses, wondering if that means an eating and drinking establishment, when the man bluntly asks why Beastmen are in the royal capital, stating that this is a city meant for humans. Mako answers evenly that there is no rule forbidding Beastmen from entering the royal capital, and that this land is scheduled to become the site of the Wee Blue family's new store. The man clicks his tongue and says that while his establishment is deeply indebted to the family for their high-quality vegetables, they cannot simply ignore lawbreakers. Mako takes out the official notice and shows it to him, explaining that this land has already been designated as the plantation site for the store and that the construction is being carried out with proper permission, which has even been confirmed by the guarding knights. The man scans the paper and mutters that the head of the family does peculiar things. When Mako asks if it is really that rare, he replies that he will not speak ill of them since he does not know the full circumstances, but advises her to stop associating with Beastmen. Mako understands all too well that discrimination against Beastmen among royalty and upper-class citizens runs deep, and that once such people turn their backs on them in the castle town, the consequences will not stop there. Steeling herself, she takes out Prince Ixa's letter and tells them not to worry, because Prince Ixa is also supporting the management of their shop. One of the other men leans in to read the letter, then hurriedly turns back to his companion and whispers that he heard Prince Isekaied defeated the princess and seized her authority, something like a greeting for participating in the succession battle. He adds that the rumor claims the princess was slaughtered. Mako grimaces, thinking that the story has grown far too cruel. Apparently, Prince Isekaied is now the third in line to the throne. The man finally looks at her again and admits that it seems she has a powerful backer, telling her to do her best before turning to leave with the others. Watching them go, Mako smiles brightly and says she will gladly take advantage of this, never imagining his protection would prove useful so quickly. Behind her, Bagos speaks quietly, saying that as expected, they are hated. Mako tells him there is no need to force himself to like people who openly hate others, but Bagos hesitates before asking whether they can really do business like this. She smiles at him and replies that even if there are not many, as long as she deepens her relationships with the people who do like them, it will not be hard to live. Business is the same, she says, because even a small number of paying customers can make things work surprisingly well. To encourage them further, she gestures around and points out just how many people live in the royal capital, saying that with this many people, there are bound to be those who will be kind to them. Encouraged by her words, Bagos and Oga exchange a look and agree that they just need to do their best for the people they care about. Even so, Mako cannot help but think that she wants to do something more, to find a way to make people remove the colored glasses through which they see beastmen. Later, while they are eating and enjoying a meal at a restaurant, her attention sharpens when she overhears the next table talking about farmers and ranchers being attacked by a pack of black wolves around the royal capital. One man says that a request has already been sent to the guild, but that the adventurers hired so far cannot handle it, and another scoffs that they must all be low-rank adventurers, remarking that the situation sounds serious. After finishing their meal, they step outside, and Ram comments that while adventurers are not people he likes, they are reliable when it counts. Oga adds that they will push through the afternoon's work as well. Spotting the older man from the restaurant, Mako approaches him and politely asks if he could tell her more about what he mentioned earlier. Later that night, after the children have fallen asleep, Mako turns to Entia and quietly says that it is time for them to leave. They leave quietly, moving with care so they do not draw attention, because Mako wants everyone else to stay focused on the construction work without distractions. When they arrive at the guild, the same men from the restaurant are already there, and one of them asks who she is, wondering if she is an adventurer. Mako replies that it is not exactly like that. Before she can explain further, Entia calls out to her, asking what she is doing there, and she instinctively rushes over and hugs him because the men look startled, and she quickly explains that he is her comrade. As they exchange glances, she adds that if they are talking about wild wolves, then perhaps she could handle it, as long as she borrows the strength of her comrades. One of the men points out that even if she asks for details now, it is obvious she was eavesdropping on their conversation earlier, but the other man waves it off and says all they know is that packs of black wolves are attacking farms and ranches. That is all there is to it. Hearing this, Mako thinks to herself that the savage beasts living in that cursed land may really be growing more violent. She tells them honestly that she will not know anything for sure until she actually sees the situation herself, but that there might be something they can do. The man hesitates, then says that if she is serious, he will pass word to the ranch owner, since their restaurant depends on supplies from the farms and ranches that are suffering damage. The other man adds that he does not know how serious she truly is, but that it would still be a great help if she could do something about it. Later, Mako walks through the streets with Entia, a worn map held carefully in her hands. According to the old man's map, the location lies beyond the gate they passed through yesterday, outside the capital city. Entia asks her why she would bother taking on something like stray wolf extermination. At first, she considers that it is simply a matter of dealing with wild animals, something they could probably manage. Then she looks at him and answers more honestly, saying that for the shop they are planning, maintaining good connections with farms and ranches is important. More than that, helping them now would also serve as good advertising for the store. As they walk on, three figures suddenly emerge from the darkness ahead, and Mako stops short in shock when she recognizes Ram, Oga, and Bagos. Bagos scratches his head and says he overheard the story about defeating the black wolves outside the restaurant, so they decided to come along and help. Mako asks if it is really all right, pointing out that everyone is already tired. Oga replies calmly that Mako herself was working just as hard as everyone else, so there is no reason they should sit this out. Bagos insists again that they should let them help, and Oga adds that if this might benefit the shop publicly, then they cannot simply ignore it. Mako lets out a small laugh and agrees, saying that in that case, she will be borrowing their strength tonight. Before long, they arrive at the ranch Mako remembers seeing when she first came to the capital. The place feels eerily still, and as they look around, Oga mutters that it is unusually quiet. An old man steps forward, staring at Mako with disbelief, and says he cannot believe she actually came. Earlier, one of the men had led her to him and she had introduced herself, and he had asked whether the beastmen were her companions or perhaps her familiars. Not fully understanding the term, she had hesitated, then answered yes, calling them her familiars to keep things simple. Now, the old man gestures for her to follow and tells her to take a look. The fences are broken in several places, and deep into the dirt along the mountainside are clear stamps of wolf footprints. He explains that from a certain night onward, packs of black wolves began appearing, attacking ranches and farms, devouring crops and livestock alike. Entya lowers his head and sniffs the air, then says that a strange scent still lingers. The old man nods and continues, saying they reinforced the fences as best they could, but the wolves are numerous and far stronger than expected, and the adventurers of the rank they can afford are no match for them. They had even discussed pooling money across the entire region to request help from high-rank adventurers. Mako listens carefully and remarks that such a plan would be extremely troublesome for them. She then asks what time the wolves usually appear. The old man answers that it is always around the dead of night, when the livestock are sound asleep and the ranch is at its most vulnerable. Realizing there is not much time left, Mako straightens and tells everyone to begin immediately. They quickly set traps throughout the ranch, reinforcing weak points and placing magical tools along the fences. Once everything is prepared, they retreat into hiding, the night growing heavier and quieter with each passing moment. Then, in the dead of the night, shapes begin to move in the darkness. One by one, black wolves emerge, then more, and more still, until their numbers swell into a frightening mass. They rush toward the ranch, but the instant they reach the fence, bolts of energy surge through it, electrocuting them and forcing them back. Oga steps forward with Ram and scoffs that they are no match for him. At the same time, Mako channels her magic into the fence's magical tools, strengthening the flow until it functions like a powerful electric fence used for pest control, crackling through the night with success. Even so, Entya's expression remains tense. He says that something about them feels wrong, that they do not truly feel like ordinary wolves. Suddenly, his eyes widen and he speaks urgently, calling out to Mako and telling her that one of them is different, that one is the boss. When the beastmen look in that direction, they see it, a massive figure far larger than the others. As soon as it realizes it has been noticed, it turns and begins to flee. Mako reacts instantly, leaping onto Entya's back, and they give chase without hesitation. As they close the distance, the beast suddenly whirls around, its fur beginning to glow ominously. Entya skids to a halt at the last possible moment and cries out in shock, warning Mako that this one is about to use magic. At the last moment, she raises a barrier as the wolf uses his magic, firing electrical shots that carry a sharp current meant to harm her. The electricity crashes against her defense, crackling through the air and leaving the wolf briefly startled. Only then does she realize it truly is electricity, and she feels relieved that the transmutation was completed in time. The wolf growls, demanding to know what she just did and calling her human with clear hostility. She answers that it is magic. He scoffs, calling her a foolish human and mocking the beasts who lend her a hand, then asks if she came to exterminate them. She replies that depends on his answer and asks where they came from and why they are attacking the ranches and farms. He declares himself a descendant of the divine wolf and says they are simply delivering punishment befitting the crime. With that, he jumps into the air and tells her it would be best if she regrets her foolishness. She warns him to stop with that attitude, but he sends another burst of electrical magic, telling her to be swallowed by chaos, and Entya is hit by it. They quickly move behind a large stone, and she apologizes, but Entya tells her not to worry, saying it is not even a scratch, though that wolf who claims to be a descendant of the divine wolf will be punished without permission. She agrees, yet thinks they are too rough and that force will not lead to conversation, and that she should have raised skills more useful for a situation like this. A screen appears, and as she checks the list of those she can converse with, one entry stands out: race, divine wolf, magic power 0, attribute light. She realizes this means she can understand the abilities of animals seeking conversation. Looking at Entya in shock, she asks if he can use magic and explains that her ability showed he has magic power. He hesitates, unsure, admitting he never thought about using magic before. Hearing the wolf's footsteps approaching again, she tells him they have no choice and asks if she can move his magic with her power. He stiffens as he feels something moving inside him, clearly magic, and realizes he can do it. When he faces the wolf again, he says that the true divine wolf will punish those who impersonate it. Offended, the wolf curses him and uses his magic again. She calls out for Entia to use his magic too, and a sudden explosion leaves the wolves shocked and fainted. Entia says that before true divinity, the enemy cannot keep their sanity. The wolf snaps that blinding him now is cowardly and says he cannot see, but another streak of light follows, and Entia appears and strikes him, leaving him fallen on the ground. The wolf struggles on the ground, but his body refuses to move, even his pack plead for his boss to help. Entia looks down at them with his chin lifted and threatens that if they continue to resist blindly, he will crush their heads. The boss orders everyone to be quiet and behave, saying it cannot be helped and that they should accept their defeat. The wolf then turns his gaze to Mako and asks what she demands of them. She crouches in front of him and tells him to first give his name. He looks away and mutters that for one who inherits the blood of the ancient divine wolf, the concept of a name does not exist. Still, if she insists on calling him something, she may use this name. Lifting his head with pride, a sharp spark in his eyes, he declares that his name is Black Omen. Even those lying behind him look at him with shining eyes, clearly in awe of their boss. Mako grimaces. She did not ask for all that, but fine. She says she understands and casually calls him Kuro-chan, then asks if Kuro-chan and the others are truly descendants of the divine wolves, because when she checked their statuses, it said black wolves. Entia growls at the boss, accusing him of lying after all. The boss replies that it is not wrong. It is true, in its own way. They are descendants of the noble divine wolves. God said so. That is why, as descendants of the divine wolves, they are meant to destroy wicked humans alongside their comrades. He explains that they were driven from their homes, their lands stolen by humans, and God permitted their revenge. That is why they came this far, believing in that purpose. Mako looks shocked and asks what he means. He explains that their first step was to attack the royal capital where humans gather, destroying the surrounding ranches and farms to spread fear, and then deliver a decisive blow to the black-armored knights and the arrogant woman who stole their land. Only then does Mako realize he is talking about Princess Antimishika. Entia says casually that if it is about her, his big sister already defeated them. The wolf growls that their opponent was not some half-baked force. Mako replies that it was not just her, but everyone working together who defeated her, and that no longer will living spaces be taken from other races. She adds that even now, another prince of the country is working hard to return the seized lands. The wolf asks quietly if that is so, admitting that the fact they were driven into a corner and her true strength does not seem to be a lie. Entia snaps back, asking what corner, saying they have completely lost. The wolf tells him to shut up, calling him a white hairy thing. Mako raises her voice and tells both of them to stop fighting. The wolf then asks her name. She replies that it is Mako. After that, he asks her to untie him and his companions, saying he no longer has the will to resist. He admits that he feels a sense of awe toward her, who defeated the humans that stole their land, and that they are willing to acknowledge their submission. Entia looks at Mako and says that he cannot believe he is saying this, but the guy's voice sounds serious. She smiles and calls out to Oga, telling him to stop the attack since there is no need for them to fight anymore. The beastmen relax in visible relief after seeing that she is safe, and Ram remarks that the other side seems to have settled down nicely as well, just as expected of her. She then turns to the rancher and asks if he is all right. He answers that yes, everyone is safe, then looks at the wolves in disbelief and says that her magic does not only create convenient things, but also has the power to subjugate animals. She corrects him gently, saying that rather than subjugation, it is more like a trade condition. He comments that even so, the numbers are impressive, and as she looks at the countless wolves gathered around, she admits that she is not quite sure what to do next. He suggests that if they are protected by this many wolves, damage from wild animals and bandits would surely decrease. Hearing that, she calls out to the wolves and says there is something she would like to ask of them, requesting that they guard the ranches and farms in this area. The rancher immediately says he will prepare food for them and heads off. The wolf boss asks her bluntly if she is telling them to become human pet dogs. She apologizes and explains that while she can visit them, she cannot take everyone to the royal capital, and she is sorry about that. He replies quietly that even so, he wishes to be her knight. Entia side-eyes him and tells him to leave Mako to him, which causes the wolf to growl back and the two of them start arguing again. Once more, she raises her voice and tells them to stop. The next day, when Mako returns, the children immediately rush over to her, bombarding her with questions about where she disappeared to. The restaurant owner brings out food and looks at them with a strained expression, saying the food is ready but asking if there is really nowhere else for them to go besides here. Olga comments that the man has a bad personality but good cooking skills, and Bagos adds that it is delicious despite that. Ram remarks that both his personality and his hairstyle are twisted. The owner crosses his arms and snaps back that they should at least praise his honest service, then glances at the boars eating enthusiastically and mutters that it is delicious as expected of men from the capital. Damn it. Mako thanks him, saying they are very grateful since he is even allowing animals inside. He mutters that they seem to be gaining a reputation in the capital, and refusing them would look boorish. Other customers begin to look over and ask if they are the ones who resolved the wolf commotion, saying the guild mentioned it, and that they even turned the wolves into something like hunting dogs. They comment that these people use magic for everything and ask if they were born into a high-ranking family to wield magic so easily, while another adds that it seems the beastmen were fighting too. Mako watches them with a warm, slightly blushing face, realizing that their efforts are being recognized. A man approaches her and excitedly asks if she is the one who defeated the wolf pack, and when she answers yes, he says it is incredible, since even seasoned adventurers were struggling. At another table, two people whisper to each other, one saying they heard these were the people from the Beastman village who came to build a shop, questioning whether it is really true that the Beastmen protected the ranch. The other scoffs that it sounds suspicious, adding that the story says they brought a huge wolf, and wondering aloud whether wolves are not usually found in packs. The woman beside him concludes that they probably instigated it themselves in the first place. Several days later, they stand in front of their newly completed shop. Bagos and Olga hug each other, jumping around in happiness, already talking about drinking themselves senseless at the restaurant later that night. Mako giggles and reminds them that the interior is not finished yet. She then quietly uses her magic, thinking how convenient it is that this ability can erase things created by magic as well. Geralt approaches her and warns that working too hard can be dangerous. She smiles and replies that she is fine, saying she is used to it. He adds that what happened the other night is the same, and she thanks him, saying he truly understood their hopes and watched over them. Their conversation is interrupted when a young girl stops in front of the shop, staring at it in awe and calling out to her parents that such a wonderful shop has been built. Her father comments that they are selling goods made in a distant village, while her mother adds that the people running it are well regarded and that she is looking forward to it. Geralt remarks that it seems her deeds are spreading through town, helping people in need for free, just like a hero of justice. Mako repeats hero of justice and shakes her head, saying she is not a hero at all, but someone who acts based on calculation, and if she expects something in return, that cannot be called justice. Just then, a girl steps into the shop with a haughty expression, her eyes scanning the room as if she already finds it lacking. Mako asks who she is, and the girl replies that when she heard Beastmen were opening a shop where the Weed Blue family's greengrocer was supposed to be built, she had her doubts. Mako asks again who she is. With a wink, the girl asks if she truly does not know her, then introduces herself as Lily Grossum, the young lady of the Grossum family, a merchant house that handles wholesale fruits and vegetables in this country, calling Mako a country bumpkin for not recognizing her face. Mako sighs at her attitude and calmly says the shop has not even opened yet. Lily declares that she came today to declare war, explaining that she decided to become the successor of her family's retail fruit and vegetable business and that her first step was to crush the new store of their hated rival, the Weed Blue family, but that plan was ruined because of them. Mako's expression hardens at the accusation, and she says that now Lily's target has shifted from the Weed Blue family to them instead. Lily smirks and says she catches on quickly despite her half-baked ideas, warning that she will end up crying and going home empty-handed, since there is no way products from some backwater village with no brand name could become popular in the capital. Mako dryly thanks her for her concern and replies that they will simply work so that does not happen. Lily pouts and stomps away. Olga stands there, dumbfounded, muttering what that was all about, while Maru comments that the royal capital really does have all kinds of people. Mako grits her teeth, clearly fired up, then turns to them and says they should just show everyone how well their countryside specialty products can sell. Later, the Beastmen arrive with the fruits and vegetables. Mako looks them over and comments that both the size and color are splendid. She says that she got the seedlings from the weed blue old man and grew them herself. The Beastman remarks that they grew vigorously just by looking at them, and it is thanks to her liquid fertilizer. She insists that even with fertilizer, she could not have harvested the vegetables, it is all because of their hard work. Bagos calls out, asking nervously if the board he made is okay. Mako glances at it and beams, saying it's perfect. The children crowd around it, and Maru comments that it is completely black. Mira reminds him that it's a sign. Mako grabs some chalk and draws a picture on it, and the children stare in awe. She explains that if she paints it with blackboard paint, she can draw and write on it with chalk. With 3 days until the opening, ideas and knowledge flow freely, everyone buzzing with anticipation. Later, at the restaurant, they discuss the work quietly when a nearby group of men begins whispering. Rumors are spreading that these people are trying to sell low-quality goods from their village at high prices. They claim the bush commotion near the royal capital was staged by the beastmen themselves, and some even say they saw them using a huge wolf to carry cargo. The talk grows heated, and murmurs ripple through the restaurant about how disappointing it is to repay kindness with suspicion, even suggesting the beastmen should not be allowed to do business in the capital. One man glares at Mako and says sharply that she is human, so why is she the ringleader? Oga rises, ready to argue, but she holds up her hand, calm yet firm, telling him that confronting them directly will only make things worse. Her mind races as she realizes a small complaint has snowballed into a dangerous rumor. She wonders quietly who could benefit from tarnishing their reputation. Before she can dwell on it, the restaurant owner steps forward, approaching the table of men and tells them to leave. The other customers are being uncomfortable. The man echoes uncomfortable. But they are just talking. His friend grumbles this shop nitpicks even the contents of customers' conversations. And then he becomes angry, snapping at him not to tell him that he's defending those beastmen. Before the argument escalates, a guild men intervene, explaining that these are the same people who helped with the wolf commotion, that the ranchers are grateful, and that the wolves have now become hunting dogs protecting the lands. Once the men leave, the guild man reassures Mako that some strange rumors may be spreading, but she need not worry. The chief adds with a nod that they are on her side. Mako thanks them, though a flicker of unease lingers. She still wonders if someone is deliberately trying to damage their reputation. Later, Prince Aika arrives, bearing drinks, and Oga and the others cheerfully start sampling them. The prince asks carefully if the storage for incoming goods is prepared, noting that with the opening approaching, she must be bringing in stock as well. She nods, but a playful glint appears in her eyes as she requests a favor. She wants to expand the variety of products before the opening. Can she get various things from the royal capital? She asks, blinking innocently. The prince agrees and says they should cooperate with her. Her excitement barely contained, she dashes off to Geralt, who leans in to whisper to his assistant that he's counting on her for security. She frowns slightly. Is that because of the rumors? She asks. He warns in a low voice that the other party might even resort to force. Later, she moves through the shops with Geralt and the prince, searching for scented oil. She mutters that a place like the red light district must have what she's looking for. The prince leans closer, his voice curious. Weren't she and the others selling vegetables and fruits? Geralt replies that was the case, looking as confused. The prince then asks if she has found anything up to her standards. She replies she wants something more like glasswork. Maybe a craftsman can make it. Geralt nods, suggesting they look for the craftsman rather than a shop. Mako glances at the prince and asks, are there any glass craftsmen in the royal capital? He admits that he doesn't know, but then a saleswoman nearby speaks up. There's an artist's studio handling glass on the outskirts of the residential area. They're quite famous. Mako practically sprints toward the saleswoman, telling to explain everything in detail. The woman hesitates and warns her the artist is a little strange. She may be surprised. Mako barely notices, her mind already spinning with ideas. After leaving the shop, she says she will put down the luggage she bought first, but then freezes as the prince's voice cuts through. What is that? The shop is surrounded by a dense crowd, and Mako mutters that it must belong to an impressive person, since she cannot even see inside. As she peers through the people, a familiar voice cuts in, saying she wondered who it was, but of course it turned out to be them. It is Lily. Mako asks if this is her shop, and Lily replies confidently that it is, welcoming her inside. Looking around, Mako realizes the store is indeed lively. Lily explains that it is not because they are competing with her, but because they decided to move forward with a special sale. Today, high-class fruits and rare crops are being discounted by 20 to 30%, which is why everyone is talking about it. Lily then comments that the heat is a problem since it can damage the products, and she casually uses magic, summoning cool air and sending it through the shop. The customers visibly relax, smiling as the pleasant chill spreads. Mako remarks that this is how she uses magic, and even the prince lets out a satisfied sigh. Lily replies that since her mother comes from a noble family, she can use magic that creates cold air. Mako notes inwardly that Lily likely does not have that much magical power. Lily then asks if it is really fine for Mako's people to be loitering around selling oil, adding that since she issued a challenge, she will treat her as a proper opponent and will not hold back. Mako thinks that Lily is not the source of the rumors after all and replies calmly that she does not intend to compete with her. Lily raises a brow and says she hopes she does her best, because if there is a competition, it will not be a pleasant experience for her either. The prince steps forward beside Mako and asks quietly if this is the rumored lady, and what her assessment is. Mako answers that it is not a bad strategy. Lowering prices is effective, but the execution could use more thought. If luxury goods are discounted, reducing the price of everyday items people usually buy would have an even greater impact. With extra money left over, customers might think they should take advantage of the chance and buy more, increasing foot traffic and encouraging people to loosen their purse strings for luxury items as well. Not long after, they arrive at the place recommended by the saleswoman, but what stands before them is an ordinary house that does not look like an artist's studio at all. Even so, Mako knocks on the door. It suddenly swings open, yet no one is there, making her jump in surprise. The prince calmly remarks that if this is an atelier, then the works must be on display inside, so it should be fine to enter, and he steps in without hesitation. Watching him, Mako thinks it is a very prince-like move, then follows with Geralt. Inside, she is immediately left speechless by the sight of the works. The artist of this atelier clearly possesses remarkable skill, and every piece feels refined and deliberate. She reaches out and gently touches a glass wind chime hanging in the air, wondering whether the artist came up with the idea themselves or saw it somewhere before. The prince suddenly speaks up, saying it feels strange, because even though this is a glass workshop, there is no place to start a fire. Mako freezes as she realizes he is right. At that moment, a sharp voice calls out, demanding to know what business they have here. An old man steps forward, and Mako quickly turns to him, explaining that she has business with the artist of this atelier. Aika also asks the man if he lives in this house, but he replies that he does not, adding that it is rare for anyone to have business with that man. Unfortunately, the timing is bad, as the artist is not here at the moment. He left a few days ago and has not returned yet. According to him, the man is an adventurer registered with the Adventurers Guild, and he likely took on some random quests because he was short on money. He advises them to wait until he comes back. When Geralt asks what they should do, she replies that they do not have time and decides they should go to the Adventurers Guild to gather information instead. At the guild, the receptionist asks about their business, and Mako asks whether an adventurer who is also a glass artist came here recently. The receptionist asks if she means Lord Delphi, explaining that he accepted a mission here a few days ago and set out, but has not returned yet. Mako asks about the details of the mission, saying they have an urgent matter and need to find him. The receptionist explains that it was originally a low-difficulty mission to explore a cave and confirm rumors that a treasure lies within, but since Delphi's return has been delayed, several adventurers joined afterward, and none have completed the objective so far. As a result, the difficulty has risen to AB rank. The receptionist then asks if Mako is an adventurer, and when she replies that she is not, the receptionist says she would need to register first, though her rank would start at F, allowing her to accept only E-rank quests. When Mako asks if there is absolutely no way around this, she is told it is not permitted. At that moment, a man nearby tells her not to push the receptionist, while another adds that newcomers who rush into high-rank quests often die young. The prince suggests that even without becoming adventurers, they could still gather information and head toward the destination, but then another man raises his hand and suggests joining the mission together with him instead. He introduces himself as Urishima, an A-rank adventurer bearing the title Great Swordsman, explaining that with an adventurer of his rank, even low-rank specialists are allowed to accompany the mission. He asks the receptionist if she remembers this system. She replies that it is a leftover rule from a time of manpower shortages and now mostly causes trouble, but Mako points out that the system still exists and asks Urishima if he would help them, her expression brightening slightly. He agrees, saying they cannot simply ignore adventurers who have not returned, and asks how many people will be joining. The prince raises his hand, followed by Geralt. The receptionist sighs and says she will proceed with accepting the quest. Just then, another boy arrives, and Mako recognizes him as someone staying at their inn. He greets them, introduces himself as Akashi, and insists on joining as well. Urishima quickly gathers everyone, spreads out a map, and explains that if they depart now, they will arrive in the middle of the night, leaving no time for delays. After confirming that everyone is prepared, he looks around once more and declares that they should set out immediately. Before leaving, they decide to take a short break and have some food, with Urishima sitting together with her. She asks him about titles, thinking that something similar had appeared on her screen earlier, and he tells her that she has effectively just become an adventurer. He explains that a title is like an innate trait or natural aptitude. Someone who excels at wielding a great sword becomes a great swordsman, while Akashi, who has strong solo action skills and excels at using a bow, is suited to be a ranger. He then looks at her thoughtfully and says that if she is curious about her own title, she should visit a guild appraiser, as it is convenient for adventure work. Meanwhile, Akashi is talking with the prince and freezes in disbelief when he learns that he is actually a prince. The prince calmly tells him it is not that unusual, since there are nobles and princes among adventurers as well. Akashi is then shocked to realize that he made the prince pick up branches earlier, and Urishima comments that he really did not notice at all. As they continue traveling and the altitude rises, the air grows colder, and they drink something warm. Urishima says they should recover their strength here and prepare themselves for what lies ahead. Just then, a commotion breaks out as injured people are brought into the guild, calling for a medic. The receptionist explains that they are B-rank adventurers who joined the mission later, and healers quickly rush to them, giving them potions and asking what happened. One of them answers that a demon race appeared inside the cave under investigation, and that the mission difficulty will likely be raised to S rank. Mako repeats the word demon in confusion, and the receptionist explains that it refers to a type of demon, an extremely dangerous designated species comparable to the dragon race. Mako turns to Urishima and asks what a demon truly is, having heard they are marked as highly dangerous. Urishima replies that even after many years as an adventurer, the demon race remains shrouded in mystery, and that he does not even know where they originate. Aika adds that legends say they may have come from another world, describing them as a cunning race that uses intelligence to deceive and toy with humans and other living beings alike. Hearing that it is not limited to humans, Mako stiffens slightly, recalling the wolves who claimed that the god had commanded them, as descendants of the divine wolf, to destroy wicked humans along with their comrades. When they finally set out, they soon encounter the demon itself, flying in the air and remarking with amusement that humans are interesting creatures, crawling disgracefully yet returning again and again with their companions. He says it does not trouble him, since it is convenient for him. Mako stares in disbelief at his wings as he launches an attack, but before she realizes it, the demon grabs them, lifts them into the air, and places them on a rock. Urishima immediately draws his blade, and the group focuses on him as he prepares to cancel the attack with an accelerated slash. Akashi fires an arrow from a blind spot, but the demon counters without even looking back, forcing Geralt to intervene at the last moment so Akashi avoids serious injury. The demon mocks them as mere humans and declares himself a subordinate of the Demon Emperor, one of the kings of insects, questioning whether they truly think they can defeat him. Mako watches him closely, and the prince notices, asking if she has a strategy in mind. Even Urishima turns to her and asks the same, and she answers yes, thinking that she wants to live up to the trust they are placing in her. She steps forward, thinking there is one thing she wants to try. The demon scoffs, calling her a little girl, and asks whether she has finally thought of a strategy to defeat him. Geralt calls out to her, telling her it is fine and that he will step in if things turn dangerous. The demon smirks, saying he has no idea what she plans to do on her own, and that at best she should at least offer an entertaining story. As she listens, she thinks of the skill that awakened the other day, her eyes beginning to sparkle. No one can quite tell what she is about to do, but in the very next moment, to everyone's shock, she pulls out an insecticide spray and sprays it directly at him. The demon immediately crashes to the ground. She watches him collapse and calmly remarks that it really was an insect type after all, judging from his wing pattern and his claim of serving the king of insects. She had taken a gamble on the possibility that he was a devil insect, and she is relieved that she was right. The demon struggles to rise, staring at her in disbelief, unable to accept that he was defeated by a mere human. She realizes that news of this will spread quickly, and that she has effectively made the demon race itself her enemy. He sneers that insignificant humans are nothing more than their toys, accusing her of being drunk on a momentary victory. Without responding, she sprays him again, and his body scatters like sand and vanishes. Urashima and the others stare at her in stunned silence, and when she mutters that everything is fine now, Urashima snaps back that it is absolutely not fine and demands to know what she did. Akashi admits that he knew she was not ordinary, but never imagined she was capable of subjugating a demon race, an enemy even S-rank adventurers struggle against. Unable to answer their questions, she quickly urges them forward, reminding them that their mission is still to investigate the cave ahead. Inside the cave, they find a man sitting casually, who greets them by saying that rescue has finally arrived, since the danger outside prevented him from descending the mountain and he had grown tired of passing time artistically inside the cave. She looks at him and realizes that he must be the artist, and he casually points to himself, introducing himself as Delphi, then asks if they are fans of his art or something. She cannot help thinking how carefree he is, while he grins proudly and says that perhaps that is true. The prince looks around and concludes that there was no treasure here after all, prompting Delphi to casually admit that if he had found any, he planned to use it for his art without informing the guild, which explains why his rank never rose beyond E. She finds herself thinking that he somehow resembles the hero from her favorite show. Delphi then declares that since they came all this way, he will show them something interesting, releasing a floating, glowing orb into the air. The prince stares at it in awe and asks how it works, only for Delphi to tell him not to touch it recklessly. The orb explodes in the next instant, and Delphi cheerfully calls it an artistic explosion. When she asks what that was, he looks at her plainly and says that for a fan, she understands nothing at all. Geralt identifies him as a salamander, which Delphi confirms, explaining that he is a demi-human capable of breathing fire, and the prince finally understands why there was no furnace in the atelier. Delphi explains that he sealed his magic inside a thin glass shell, which reacts explosively with even slight stimulation. When he asks why they came to see him, she presents her request and hands him a paper. After learning her name and reading it, Delphi admits that it is an idea he never considered, cursing quietly as he realizes he has been outdone, yet immediately declares that if he creates it, it will only prove his artistic superiority. He starts working on the spot, only to have Geralt stop him and insist they descend the mountain first. That night, she ends up groaning in bed after being forced to listen to Delphi's endless stories, while Urashima reports to the guild and Geralt brings her back to the inn. When she wakes up the next evening, she apologizes, having slept through the entire day. Morrow says he was worried when she disappeared, Mira adds that she has been sleeping non-stop since returning, and Olga says Deli explained everything that morning, reminding her that she is the backbone of their group. Ram points out Delphi, who has been waiting there since morning without explaining anything. She rushes over and asks if he already completed the work, and Delphi smiles in response. She stares at the finished glass decorations and plates in awe as he proudly says he perfectly shaped her artistic concept. As everyone admires the work, she remembers there is one more thing she needs help with, approaches Orchidia to make a request, then assigns a task to Entia, who reluctantly agrees because it's that person but it is her request. With that, there is only one day left until the store opening. On the day of the opening, Olga looks visibly tense as he asks Mako what she means by all this. The opening day is crucial for their future, and to him, today should be the decisive showdown. Is it really fine to be this relaxed? Geralt places a hand on his shoulder and tells him to calm down, assuring him that she has a plan. Mako had instructed them to open the shop at 7 in the evening, a time when most other stores are already closing. Even Ram looks uneasy, pointing out that the hour has long passed and that it is already dark outside. Mako simply smiles and tells them not to worry, saying this time is meant for final adjustments. She reminds them that she pushed herself until yesterday, and now they need to rest, steady their minds, and picture how they will respond once customers arrive. If they skip a proper final check now, they will be overwhelmed once the shop opens. At last, Ram and Olga accept her reasoning. She tells them to keep things as they are until nightfall, while she goes over the inventory and confirms the remaining details. On the rooftop, Delphi works quietly, muttering that he does not like her. When Mako asks why, he replies that all her ideas are things he would never come up with himself. Still, he declares that with his artistic skill, he will elevate them to something greater. He raises his hand and releases a small glass sphere into the air. A sharp crack echoes across the rooftops, and in the next instant, the fireworks shoot skyward. Orchidea stares upward in awe, whispering that it is beautiful, while Phrygia says it looks like flowers blooming in the darkness. From the rooftop, Mako calls out to Oga and the others, telling them to open the doors. The time has come. And with that, the shop's grand opening finally begins. She welcomes everyone just as the crowd begins pouring into the shop. Maru stares at the steady stream of customers and asks in a flustered voice what they should do. Mako simply smiles and tells him it is fine, that he should treat them normally. She reminds him that they practiced for this many times, and that everything will be all right. The customers move through the shop, their eyes drawn to the famous products from the village. They pause at the tomatoes, commenting on how fresh and appetizing they look. Bago steps forward with samples, offering tomato tastings, and the moment they bite into them, their faces light up in delight. Nearby, Orchidea introduces the herbariums, carefully explaining that they contain dried flowers cultivated in the village and infused with oil. She invites them to smell it, describing its calming effect, and the customers nod in approval as the gentle fragrance spreads. Mako puts Maru to work by handing him the menu and asking him to take orders, while Geralt moves through the shop offering sodas. Before long, the girls begin gushing over him, and he can only smile wryly, already sensing that it will be a long night. As Mako scans the shelves, her eyes widen when she notices the orange display thinning rapidly. Customers keep coming, more than she expected. Is this the effect of word spreading so quickly? Gratitude wells up in her chest. She is relieved she had asked Entia and Kuro-chan to help restock the goods, even if the two of them clearly do not enjoy working together. Suddenly, Lily barges into the shop, demanding to see her. When Mako leads her to a quieter corner, Lily shocks her by bowing deeply and begging to be taken in as her apprentice. She explains that after watching the store for several days, she could not ignore what she saw, the atmosphere, the way customers were drawn in, the product development, and the flow of service. There is too much she wants to learn. She wants to observe Mako's work up close. When Mako asks about her own shop, Lily replies that she spoke with her father and declined the position of manager. One day, she wants to grow enough to confidently entrust the business back to him. Mako is left speechless. She knows some of her success comes from experience, but she also cannot deny that her abilities play a part. Even so, she doubts Lily would accept that explanation. A few days later, the head of the Weed Blue family tells her that even in the royal capital, people are beginning to ask about working at the shop. Mako is surprised that this is happening after only a few days, but he explains that the opening spectacle, the products, and the service left a strong impression. When she points out that beastmen were once shunned in the capital, he admits that was true until now. Together, they changed that. The realization makes her smile softly, knowing everyone will be happy to hear it. He proposes supporting store operations, management, and staff training, easing her burden, and assures her that proper fees and profit sharing will be handled. Before she can even bring it up, Oga and Ram immediately agree, admitting they had already overheard the discussion. Maru then excitedly calls out to her, proudly showing off the small uniform he is wearing. She looks at him fondly before glancing around the shop. No matter their status, race, or origin, everyone is laughing, talking, and enjoying themselves. A quiet thought crosses her mind: if the Weed Blue family manages the shop, does that mean she can finally return to the village? As she ponders this, the prince casually suggests taking a vacation, mentioning a seaside resort favored by nobles. His assistant shoots him a sharp look, but he ignores it effortlessly. His assistant then says that if he is taking a break, she wants one too. He tells her not to be selfish, but she adds smoothly that she wants a resort by the sea. As Mako thinks about swimming at the beach and a barbecue, it seems like various things can be done. The children eye her suspiciously and ask what she is plotting, saying she looks far too pleased. She only smiles and replies that she just thought of something nice. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.